simple game. Is he serious?
Always.
It's much worse than you think.
We're being ambushed. Abort, that's an order. They knew we were coming. Do you read me?
This whole operation was a decoy.
I can understand you're very upset.
You've never seen me very upset.
This tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
Mediev.
Damn, Jack starts typing away like Mediev is an easy name to spell or something. I don't care if you're in the CIA, that first I is gonna trip your ass up.
This is me typing this word. Yeah, it wasn't that hard. It's a you problem.
I'm gonna go ahead and knock off 5 sins because Brian De Palma shows how you can tell a story visually without having to cut to a new shot every second. He uses the anamorphic format beautifully in this movie, and if you pay attention, you're rewarded.
Wow, a sin removal that fast? I'll admit, that's impressive. However, you used the phrase, pay attention, but I'm about to point out a few instances of you not doing that in this video. Just watch.
Spoiler credits.
Yeah, but these clips are all out of context and are giving the audience a few ideas on what you're about to see. Wait, isn't that just a teaser trailer?
This airplane uses Hi-8 tape decks for its entertainment system, and the CIA uses Hi-8 tapes to send top-secret messages to its teams. Honestly, even with the technology in 1996, this seems pretty cumbersome, and a lot of things could go wrong. But I guess this is the only way the movie could tell us what's at stake and who the characters are. But for Mr. Phelps, wouldn't a secure call be enough?
They're on a plane right now. I don't think using a phone would be wise, and considering this tape came from an IMF agent, I'm positive they make sure to keep it safe at all times.
But this half is useless without its mate, which matches the code names with their true names. It is this half which Golitsyn plans to steal from the embassy.
We find out later that the CIA is putting a decoy knock list in the embassy. But why doesn't anyone on the IMF team question why a super-sensitive spy list is sitting on a f***ing desktop in a Prague embassy?
It's possible they did question it, but it doesn't matter to them since they have to focus on completing the mission.
Your mission, Jim, should you choose to accept it.
And if you choose not to accept it, since this is a one-way recording, I'll have no way of knowing. So I guess, me. Also, Super Top Secret Spy Agency leaves its mission's go status up to the whims of random field commanders.
Literally no one has chosen to not accept the mission. It's safe to say they assumed Jim would say yes.
This tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
How does a tape know when to self-destruct? It's all analog. So when it reaches the end of the tape, does a mini cauldron of acid tip over and eat the tape inside?
Yeah, that's probably what happened. What's the sin?
Keep in mind, also, you wouldn't be able to do this just a couple years later on flights under 6 hours, and on no flight at all 4 years later. So how did they figure out the non-smoking self-destruct mechanism when the laws changed?
This movie came out in 1996 when you could still smoke on a plane. This isn't a real sin in the movie because it's not something the filmmakers anticipated.
Netscape. And also, video on the internet that is this smooth during the age of Netscape.
This laugh.
Why are all 3 of these camera feeds zooming in at once?
Jim is probably doing it.
We find out later these 2 are part of the other team watching Ethan's team in Prague, but they're terrible at their job. I mean, what kind of training did you get to be a spy in the CIA?
The only reason we know that these are spies is because Ethan noticed them. He's incredibly smart, and it's not something regular people would have noticed. I mean, think about it. The first time you saw this movie, did you think these people were spies?
Tell me, Senator, do you not have someone on your staff named Jack?
They give Jack shit for not having Sarah's credentials uploaded yet, but honestly, why didn't they simply send him in earlier to do all this? I mean, I guess we could argue that Jim, who we find out is the bad guy, is probably behind that, but no one, not even Ethan, brings up the fact that Jack's work could have been done beforehand and this wouldn't be a problem.
So some of the things I say against CinemaSins here come from Cinema Wins' video on this movie. Just want to give him credit. Anyway, Jack needed the cover of a party to do the hacking so no one would pay attention, and since they have a short time frame, he had to do it inside the elevator shaft.
Sorry, sir.
Sorry, sir? Wasn't it Sarah's identification that wasn't going through?
Ethan is playing a senator here, and Sarah is playing Eliason, who is giving the senator a tour. Ethan is meant to be a person to be respected here, so both Sarah and this guard are doing that.
Why are any of the party guests, dignitaries or otherwise, allowed to access the super secret computer room?
Because they don't expect Ethan, who they think is a senator, to steal something from their computer.
Gruesome death, but why didn't Jack at least try evading these things or lying flat on his back? Seems like it would have spared him the death and the eye stabbing.
That doesn't matter though. We later find out that Jim was controlling the elevator, so even if he did try and evade them, Jim would move the elevator higher, killing him anyway.
Obvious guy shooting himself is obvious, but the movie will base its entire story on the unobviousness of it. Since we know Phelps is faking his death here, how did he get his arm at that angle to point the gun at his head? Go ahead, try it at home. I dare say it's impossible?
Are you suggesting you knew that Jim didn't die here? I highly doubt that. And it's impossible. Did you not see the flashback that we see later on? Here it is in case you don't remember.
Sarah, abort.
Just a minute ago you were all, I can't follow orders because the knock list is out in the open. Now Jim dies and you're like, well damn, maybe he was right after all.
Yeah, Ethan believes someone murdered Jim and doesn't know at this point that Jim killed Jack. With 2 agents dead, he wants to protect the rest of the team.
Sarah saw this dude she was following totally get stabbed, but somehow still stuck close enough to the fence to ensure that she too would get stabbed.
Another case of you not remembering when this moment is flashback to later on. In that scene, we see Sarah really get close to the fence when Krieger killed her.
This asshole left his knife stuck in Sarah so that Ethan could figure out who it is later. I mean, he was like, take that, and I'll leave it inside your body because I think of people as knife racks.
Krieger most likely noticed Ethan was coming and quickly ran away, forgetting about the knife. That's what happens when people are under stress. They don't think clearly.
This is Ethan Hunt. They're dead.
Even though Kittredge should probably know that Ethan means his team, they could mean any number of people above one.
Again, this is the same guy who earlier implied that he was paying attention, but he clearly isn't in this particular scene. In the full scene, Kittredge asks Ethan who he's talking about, and Ethan clarifies.
This is Ethan Hunt. They're dead.
Wait, who's dead?
My team! My team is dead! Jesus. Galitzin's gone. They knew we were coming, man. They knew we were coming, and the disc is gone.
This is an amazing fine dining establishment to be open this late in what appears to be a deserted Prague right now. How does this place stay in business?
There's a bunch of IMF agents inside. It's fairly obvious they opened the place to fool Ethan.
Why was there another team?
You know, who are so obvious in their jobs that they actually define the opposite of their jobs.
This is padding the sin count, since you already mentioned this in a previous sin.
The actual list is secure at Langley.
And you might be right to question why it would be anywhere else. Maybe you couldn't figure out why you were on this mission, but you definitely should have known something was up.
What? You say that Ethan has the right to question why the list wasn't in Prague, but then go on to say that Ethan should have known this mission was a mole hunt? How are these two things even connected?
So someone sold his team out and they're all dead. His bosses think he's a mole, and he just learned there was a second IMF team shadowing them the entire mission. Yet Ethan still thinks it's a smart idea to return to the safe house? Jason Bourne is laughing at your carelessness, Ethan Hunt.
He isn't careless, though, because you cut out the scene where Ethan took a light bulb, broke it, and spread the glass on the floor, which would let him know if there's anyone outside of the room.
No one but Ethan Hunt could figure out that Job 314 actually meant Job 314. Ladies and gentlemen, your CIA.
How would they have figured that out? The only reason Ethan did was because there just happened to be a Bible in front of him. Not to mention the word Job isn't very common, so I can believe this being kept a secret.
Max at Job 314? Oh my god.
This laugh.
This message 2 line explodes my brain. It basically means Ethan was able to steal the most coveted username in the entire Book of Job discussion board on this very night. Either that or Book of Job has like 0 users. I concede it's possible.
Admits that it's possible, sends it anyway.
You wish to meet Max? The price of admission.
So they go through all this trouble to make sure Ethan can't see anything, but no trouble whatsoever to figure out if he's being tailed by another person.
Who's to say they didn't? Since they immediately cut to Ethan meeting Max, it probably happened off screen.
The one you have is not only worthless, it's certain to be equipped with a homing device to pinpoint your exact location.
And only works when you stick it in a computer, but not until then, for some reason.
I don't see how this is a sin.
Were these guys just driving around Prague until someone popped in the disc? They got here in record time for people who just figured out the disc was even being used. Hell, I couldn't even get the van started in the time these guys showed up.
Ethan literally says in this scene that they have about 2 minutes before they arrive, and the IMF are trying to look for him, whom they still think is in Prague.
Inside the Black Vault, there are 3 systems operating.
A thing that checks for sound, another that checks weight, and another that checks temperature. But even with all that, absolutely no cameras of any kind, which is peculiar. You wouldn't have to point cameras at the computer, just in blind spots like this.
Even if there are cameras in this place, Luther Stickle is right there. You know, the hacker. He can turn them all off if he wanted to.
If the CIA is investing all this time and money to make sure temperature, weight, and sound trip the alarms, wouldn't they do everything in their power to make sure no one could come through the air conditioning shaft, which is the only way into the vault at that point?
You are literally showing on screen that there are lasers right here, so they did take the precaution. They just couldn't have anticipated this device.
What sector is the air conditioning? 21, but there's no alarm in sector 21.
So let me get this straight. If a fire actually happened at CIA headquarters, they wouldn't let the firefighters go to the section with air conditioning just because it's not on fire? And if they didn't, why wouldn't they have somebody on the job that could turn them off for them?
You're missing the part of the scene where the fire alarms didn't go off immediately, so they're just confused why these firefighters are here if there's no alarm going off.
This guy, whose coffee cup is totally within his peripheral vision, does not see getting squirted in his coffee cup.
Because he's reading a newspaper?
1, 2, 3. Toast.
Okay, great, but you are directly above an open vent, leading to the room with the sensitive security microphones. So breaking the volume limit here should be just as toast as doing it in the actual room.
The vent is currently closed. I'd say he's okay for now.
Krieger, from here on in, absolute silence.
As improbable as this is, I absolutely love this scene to death. It's so tense, so well made, and it lasts 10 minutes without the slightest bit of boredom. I might have to knock off another 5 sins for it.
Nice job for actually acknowledging greatness. This truly is one of the most iconic scenes in the whole franchise.
Also, he clearly uses a keycard to access this mainframe, but Ethan does not have that keycard.
That's probably because Donlo was throwing up and didn't bother turning off the computer before leaving, giving Ethan the opportunity to use it.
Now, here's something strange. Donlo is typing his username and password into the computer, which they absolutely need to happen so they can use it themselves after he leaves the room. But this doesn't appear to be part of the plan, because Ethan was ready to go all the way down to the computer before Donlo walked in. Plus, how did they know if Donlo would even be well enough to make it to the mainframe before he got violently ill?
You're right. It wasn't a part of the plan. When Ethan logs into the computer, he has the username already, and Luther tells him what the password is. Knowing Luther, he most likely got both of them with his hacking.
Sure, that's better than your password, but I'm pretty sure it's a sin that the CIA has all this sensitive undercover agent information behind a login with a password that is a mere 6 digits.
So you're gonna ignore the scene that literally shows Luther giving Ethan the password, debunking that previous sin? Okay.
The appearance and timing of this vent shaft rat in a pristine CIA facility has me convinced that the rat is actually a double agent.
I mean, it's still better than the endgame rat.
Red scrolling encrypted text accidentally inspires The Matrix. Not the movie, the actual Matrix.
Arbitrary movie reference.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that would have caused enough decibels to land you all in Leavenworth.
Sending this iconic shot.
The CIA agent is back at the outer door, but unlike last time, Luther isn't warning Ethan.
That's probably because he was too distracted by Ethan not tripping the alarms.
What? How is that possible? Remember, this is how he's positioned just before catching that sweat drop. Did he dislocate his f***ing arm?
Oh, I'm sorry, that actually wasn't that hard.
You're telling me he let go of the rope, killed the rat with his bare hands, then grabbed the rope again and stopped its slide, and Ethan only fell 2 feet in that time?
Missy.
Why does he even have this knife out right now? Was he cutting up apples? I bet he was cutting up apples, that asshole.
I can't believe these two sins are back to back. Krieger killed the mouse with the knife, obviously.
Ethan takes out 2 discs, puts one in his mouth, then puts the second back in his vest. Why pull both out if he only needed one? Why even bring 2?
Oh, you mean this?
Well, now 2 discs make sense, but still not during the mission.
Another example of you sending something twice.
Do you actually think I'd let you have the knock list?
Ethan proves he can do magic tricks, so Krieger simply believes him when he says he doesn't have the real knock list. Problem is, why would you ever believe that Ethan not only performed magic while being pulled out of the vault, but gave you a dummy disc for whatever stupid reason?
Krieger didn't think he performed magic in the vault. He thought he did when Ethan tricked him into taking the wrong disc. Plus, we all thought Ethan really did give him the fake disc in this scene until he revealed that he didn't. Stop pretending that you can predict plot points.
Why, oh why, did Jim take a Bible out of the Drake Hotel? And it just happens to be the very hotel he was staying at just before this mission. But mainly I'm upset he took the Bible out, because as Max said, he doesn't quote scripture in his messages. So why did he need to take the Bible?
Just because he didn't quote it doesn't mean he's above a little underhand sardonicism, using a reference from Job about kings lying in ruin to jab at the intelligence community he'd be exposing.
Krieger did have the knock list?
What?
See? You admit you fell for Ethan's trick, so why did you include that previous sin?
Also, now we have to send Ethan for being dumb enough to take 2 discs on the mission, but not have any ultimate use for the second disc, and for trusting Krieger with the real disc.
He literally didn't trust him though, which is why he pulled the trick on him. Don't you already know this? What are you even saying here?
By the way, how Ethan imagines Jim's fake death is also impossible, because there's no camera that could have captured the gun at this angle with the way Jim's face is pointed.
Wait, doesn't this disprove that earlier sin where you tried to say that Jim pointing the gun at himself is impossible? Shouldn't you have gone back to rewrite that sin?
I mean, the movie is giving us the opportunity, so let us reiterate. Highly trained Sarah actually ran up to the gate like this with absolutely no idea what she was doing.
Refer to the previous sin.
Okay, random green jumpsuit guy, run through now. Great, perfect. Got it on the first take.
Pointing things out on the screen.
This was not what we discussed.
You're on a train and Ethan is changing the plan without messaging you first. Why do you still trust this guy again? Because he told you the knock list was tainted that one time?
Right after this, Ethan tells her that the disc is right under her seat. Why wouldn't she check there and then double check that it's the right disc?
Awesome. But where the hell did he find a mask-making machine? They were all disavowed and have been on the run with minimal equipment. Claire slept on the f***ing floor last night at the safe house. But sure, mask machine.
This is Ethan freaking Hunt we're talking about here. You don't think he could have stolen one off screen?
Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, Ethan.
Reciting scripture to prove a point while neglecting other parts of it in your own life in order to shame people. This seems appropriate when considering some of the backlash after the Supreme Court's decision on gay marriage.
He's a villain, and he's just taunting him.
Jim decides to kill his wife first because he knows Tom Cruise has at least 4 more of these movies to make and needs to survive this first one. I know Jim is also a highly trained agent, but kicking Ethan Hunt's ass? Huh? Also, you're not going to kill him? Why not?
These two sins are saying the same thing. Though, to answer your question, Jim's gun only has 2 rounds. He fires one at Claire and meant to shoot the other one at Ethan, but he messed up his aim. Plus, Jim has a helicopter to catch, so he's in a hurry.
I'm gonna have to go ahead and question the ability of a helicopter to fly without crashing into and inside of a train tunnel this tiny and at this speed. And by question, I mean sin.
This is something that was set up earlier in the movie.
If we're going to Virginia, why don't we drop by Fort Knox? I can fly a helicopter right in through the lobby and set it down inside the vault. And it would be a hell of a lot easier than breaking into the goddamn CIA.
Is this guy's thirst for revenge so special that he would attempt killing Ethan with helicopter blades while he flies inside the tunnel? Anyway, lucky for Ethan, it is, and now we'll just watch him jump on the helicopter without questioning it.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what revenge implies. Not thinking clearly.
There are no consequences when you stick bomb gum on a helicopter flying through a tunnel while attached to a train. Hell, Ethan doesn't even get burned being that close to an explosion. And let's not forget the extremely lucky landing he gets here. Not forceful enough to knock him out, but enough to get him back on the train.
Ethan literally used gum to blow up this helicopter. If you accepted that, why couldn't you accept this?
Would you consider the cinema of the Caribbean? Aruba, perhaps?
This is why you don't surprise your agents with top-secret self-destructing tapes on a flight. Ethan doesn't even smoke, so how's he gonna cover that shit up? Plus, he's not in the back of the plane or anything, so any child can look over his shoulder and see top-secret shit.
He can just put headphones on so no one would even hear this message. Even if a kid did see it without listening, they wouldn't understand it. This might take the cake for the dumbest sin in the video.
I don't think I can do it.
I mean, it'll be difficult.
Very.
Well, this is not mission difficult, Mr. Hunt. It's mission impossible. Difficult should be a walk in the park for you.
You gotta be kidding.
I beg you, Dmitri. Come to Sydney and accompany me to Atlanta immediately.
Seriously, Vladimir asks his friend to come to Sydney just so that he can then get on another plane to fly to Atlanta. There's virtually no reason for this, except that Dmitri is a bad guy who's going to crash the plane to kickstart the plot.
Vladimir wants to protect the serums, and Ethan is the only person he trusts, as we find out later. I'd say he thinks he's making the best decision.
Also, 20 hours, you've got to fly from Sydney to Atlanta? Why f***ing Atlanta? And why can't you just go to LA to prove the antidote works?
Does it matter? The flight is under 20 hours long, so I think this question is irrelevant.
Hey, is that Tom Cruise's cousin? I wonder how he got this job.
Pointing things, or I guess in this case person, out on the screen.
Ulrich, remember to pull the...
Sure, there's a microchip on this sticker, but how does that broadcast a different voice?
Seriously? That's what you're questioning? And not the masks themselves? These masks are already unrealistic. Why is the microchip where your suspension of disbelief stops?
Pilot luckily wakes up just in time to not be able to pull this plane up in time anyway.
If he still died, I would not call it lucky. Like, do you know what that word means?
Look, I don't care who you are not climbing a rock face this sheer. Look at where he is right now. Where the fuck is he going to go? This shot is a fucking lie. See? They just cut to a completely different rock face in this angle, because the previous one, as I said, was unclimbable.
So this was a continuity error. While I appreciate you pointing that out in the second sin, you did not need to say what you said in the first sin. This is just padding the sin count and runtime.
Movie thinks that if it plays Ico Ico while we watch Tom Cruise, we'll confuse this with Rain Man.
Arbitrary movie reference.
Nope.
What's the problem? The only assumption I can think of is that you think this is unrealistic. But this is Tom freaking Cruise, dude. If there's one thing everyone knows about him, it's that he does all his own stunts. This whole mountain climbing was real, with no green screen. So Tom really did make that jump. Also, the number at the top changes way too early.
Nope. In just 4 years, the IMF has graduated its mission delivery system from high-8 tapes to Super HD wireless Oakleys.
Funnily enough, there was a sin I cut from the last film where I pointed out the tapes aren't the only devices the IMF uses to send messages. This movie proves that. Did you really think those tapes were the only option they had? What if they were on a plane? You know, like in this scene?
The next time you go on holiday, please be good enough to let us know where you're going.
How did these assholes ever find him? Even if Ethan casually mentioned to his CIA coworkers that he likes climbing mountains in Utah, they would still have needed to find a needle in a haystack in an exact location at the same time he was climbing them.
This is the impossible mission force. Just saying, they have their ways.
Also, let's start our movie with some impossible stunt that has nothing to do with the plot whatsoever, and then justify it when a helicopter flies by and gives Ethan his mission orders.
Well, technically this sets up a later scene where Ethan climbs a rocky hill, so it's not completely pointless.
Tandy Newton isn't... I'm sorry, what were we talking about?
Ah, the old "this woman isn't my girlfriend" sin. Sorry that you're an SJW now, because this is in your past and no one will forget it, even if you delete it.
Well, good thing this girl Ethan's supposed to recruit is also curious about him. Is that part of his IMF training? Animal magnetism?
Ethan was literally staring at her. I'd stare back too, especially since this is supposed to be one of those love at first sight things.
She planned her burglary around a percussive dance number? How much research did that take? She'd have to find out about this party, get herself invited, and make sure the entertainment is loud enough to accommodate her burglary needs.
Again, does it matter? This scene is meant to establish Nai's abilities as a thief, so she probably did research about what the best time was to steal her prize.
Where did you get this number? I don't even have it.
I'm guessing she stole this car and that's why she doesn't have the number. But if she did steal it, why is she answering the phone?
Or she probably doesn't care to know what her own number is.
Where the f*** is he coming from? And how did he know she would be driving down this road today at this very moment? I can understand maybe following her, but knowing she'd be driving down this road at this exact time? This amazing thief is predictable as
You just said he was following her. Why did you even bother asking how he knew where she was if you know?
You're gonna catch me!
That sounds like a bullshit reason to extend this scene.
I mean, I don't blame her. This guy is following her and messed up her heist. I can see why she doesn't want to help him.
This movie is so stealing James Bond that somewhere at the end of this road, James Bond is waiting for them and ready to put a bullet in them.
This is the second time you've compared this to James Bond.
Do you mind if I'm on top?
Somebody said, we need to make the Mission Impossible movies more like James Bond, so let's half-ass some innuendos and call it a day.
Please don't do it again.
Is this movie actively trying to get me to take a nap right now?
So you're saying that the movie is boring? I can't agree with that, but even I acknowledge that that's a subjective reason to not like something. Isn't this series supposed to be objective?
Not that I wouldn't kiss either of these two in pretty much any given situation, but this kissing seems sudden and forced and sudden.
Literally acknowledges why it's realistic these two kissed, still calls it sudden.
Damn, you're beautiful.
What the f*** movie am I watching?
So you call Tandy Newton pretty, that's okay. Ethan Hunt does it, that's wrong. I feel like you're jealous right now.
I can entrust this to no one but you, as we say. I'm sorry. And you are sorry.
That's a saying? Why did you say it in this instance? You're the one asking for the favor here. What does Dimitri have to be sorry for?
Here's the scene that shows Vladimir explaining Ethan is the only person he can trust. And he still kept that previous sin at the beginning.
Hans Zimmer warms up his Dark Knight score 8 years in advance.
Don't you mean Batman Begins, since that came first 3 years before The Dark Knight?
You made it.
Sound as if I was recruiting her for her skills as a thief.
Well, then I misled you, or you made the wrong assumption.
When giving our agents missions, we feel it's best to keep them in the dark as much as possible. Also, so that when you're recruiting a hot jewel thief, you'll bang her and complicate the whole get back together with Ambrose plot.
You literally just played Anthony Hopkins saying that Ethan probably made the wrong assumption, and yet you still kept this sin in?
You mean it'll be difficult?
Very.
Well, this is not mission difficult, Mr. Hunt. It's mission impossible. Difficult should be a walk in the park for you.
First off, if you're cheekily telling him it's not mission difficult, that it is in fact mission impossible, then you cannot sell him on the fact that it's merely difficult. And second off, roll credits.
Are you not paying attention to what he's saying at all? He's saying that the IMF do impossible, so convincing Naya to go to Ambrose being difficult shouldn't be that hard. Also setting this scene.
This transponder chip is completely untraceable. It's your location to a satellite, which can be read by only this computer.
So you're saying it's not completely untraceable then, right? Since you can trace it. How is that possible?
Again, are you not paying attention? Ethan is saying the device is untraceable except from this one computer. It's literally that simple.
And I guarantee that after that airline crash, he's monitoring every one of them.
Because when you're a disgraced CIA operative, you still have access to things like that.
Considering he's a spy, I feel like he'd have his ways.
Mission Impossible 2 is not above joke.
This ain't funny. Just bought these $800 Gucci shoes.
And you wore them to the desert for an IMF mission, and you're complaining because...
Shows why Luther is complaining, then asks why he's complaining.
Yeah, I heard about you, Luther.
Discount Simon Pegg.
Suggesting this guy is anything like Simon Pegg.
Isn't there any way we can speed this up?
Why wasn't Luther and the other guy already in Sydney way before Naya got out of prison? You call him out here right when she's getting to Sydney? Hell, why not track her the whole way?
I think it's fair to say he called them while Naya was in prison, but it took them a while to get here.
Ethan, here we go.
Got it up just in the nick of time to break your heart.
Even though Ethan knows that Naya has to do this to get the information they need? I mean, heck, you brought up James Bond twice, and I'm pretty sure that's something that happens in those movies.
No flies on her. No bugs either. No transmissions.
You know, I know the movie said the transponder was untraceable and could only be read by a certain computer, but wouldn't a scan like this at least show that something was being transmitted, even if they couldn't read it?
Again, you just answered your own question. Now I'm wondering if you're doing my job for me.
Cameraman misreads the script and zooms in on the wrong character during this scene.
Yep, it seems like Jeremy wants to see Naya undressing. I mean, then again, this is the same guy who pined for a teenage girl for 8 movies, as one person in my comments keeps pointing out over and over again, so I shouldn't be surprised.
You're not interested in seeing how it looks?
Oh, I am. Later.
So, while they had sex, did Ethan watch a tiny yellow dot move forward 3 inches, then back 3 inches, and so on and so forth during the whole thing?
I mean, even if that did happen, why is that a sin? Why is that something wrong with this movie?
One considers her timing, of course. Getting nicked within a week of the plane going down.
Man, Ambrose would be excellent at CinemaSins, but he'll choose to ignore this because the power of boners is stronger.
Jeremy says boner.
Ethan, who Ambrose knows well, decides not to wear a mask to the track for some reason because, well, what are the odds?
Ethan's smart enough to keep as far away from Ambrose as possible, and since no one notices him anyway, I'd say this question is moot.
Ambrose just pulled the camera's memory card and put it into an envelope.
Is the movie just narrating to me things that happened 5 seconds prior? Is this real life?
Hey, since you can't keep up with movies, you probably need this spelled out for you anyway. Hold on.
It then takes an unnecessarily tense 15 seconds for Ambrose to say,
"Put down 1,000 for me."
Notice there was a cut there because they don't show why it takes that long. Firstly, Ambrose waits for Naya to turn around, and then he walks up to her while the movie shows her hiding the envelope, which we can assume is happening simultaneously.
Don't turn around.
Yeah, that would be suspicious. Like my face.
Double dipping.
So this is Ambrose posing as Ethan so that he can get information out of Naya. But don't they have a satellite following her every move? At least when she's outside? Can't Luther see that fake Ethan is talking to her right now?
Probably because he's focused on getting information out of McCloy.
I guess this is why Luther isn't watching Naya right now, because he's in the hospital for some reason. He's totally not needed here at this point in time. But hey, anything to keep him from seeing Naya talk to fake Ethan.
Oh, so you know why, and yet you kept that previous sin. Again, have I mentioned you're padding the sin count?
Going now! Ethan, wait!
This is just so stupid a move for a super spy to make, it's almost unbelievable he'd do it. Oh, no, wait, it is.
Actually, this is Ethan Hunt. I find it 100% believable.
Also, remember how you loved this in the first movie? Here's some more of that first movie magic.
Oh yeah, both movies had a scene where Ethan hangs from a wire and lowers down. Yeah, that's gotta be annoying. Person who overuses cliche, Deus Ex Machina, and boner mentions.
John C. McCloy.
By the way, the only reason they have John saying this is because he stupidly said his full name,
John C. McCloy,
for no reason anyone can think of except to advance the plot.
Even if McCloy didn't say his full name, Ethan could just use a microchip to sound like him.
Man, even Ethan shows terrible regard for public health safety by shooting the dude holding the deadly virus in a mostly glass vial. This movie wants a pandemic to happen.
I feel like he's smart enough to know that the gun won't break here and to shoot the guy holding it.
You were in such a hurry to knock off that 747, you never figured out where Chimera really was.
Yeah, and why is that? A smart CIA guy somehow doesn't realize that Vladimir could only be carrying the virus in his body, not in a briefcase? Why do you think that asshole injected himself in the first place? If he could carry it any way else, don't you think he would've?
This whole question is irrelevant because Ambrose literally says that he knew and Ethan corrects himself.
Hurry to knock off that 747, you never figured out where Chimera really was.
I knew where it was.
Huh. And you knew the only way Nikorovich could smuggle the live virus was by injecting himself and using his own bloodstream as a petri dish. You knew that. While you were knocking him off, destroying the very thing you came for. I'm not going to lose you!
Girl I basically just met?
Okay, so I agree with you that this romance started off way too fast, but I'm pointing out right now that you've said this way too many times in this video. Saying it one time would have been enough. And you know what? Since you like padding the sin count, I'll do that too.
Why didn't he put the guns away before jumping? You know, so he could use his hands and whatnot.
Doesn't matter though, since he put them away so he can eject the parachute.
And nothing anyone in this story did for the next 12 hours mattered.
What did you want to see? More planning for what to do next? Wouldn't that have padded the runtime?
Oh, look, I was wrong. Movie shoehorns in a final scene reason for showing Ethan's rock climbing earlier. Yeah, no, still stupid.
And here's another case of a later scene debunking something you said earlier, but you not deleting said previous sin. That's what most of this video has felt like, and it's frustrating.
Pigeons flying around? That's definitely something I need to check out.
Don't you know anything about birds? They usually fly away when they see someone getting close to them.
It's pretty amazing that Ethan brought an Ethan mask and a Duke mask, but even more amazing that Ambrose actually sent the Duke out after Ethan so that Ethan would look smart for having brought the right masks.
But Stamp is Ambrose's right-hand man. Of course he'd send him out.
Tom Cruise on a motorcycle cliche.
Sending Tom Cruise on a motorcycle.
Gun pointing montage.
Pointing things out on the screen.
Ethan does this without his shoes catching on fire, even though every other moment of friction in this movie has produced an explosion.
I could be wrong about this, but wasn't this a practical stunt?
Movie ensures protagonist and antagonist are dressed similarly enough that you'll be even more confused than normal during the over-edited fight scene.
No, I'm pretty sure you're the only one confused. I was able to follow this fight just fine.
Gotta be a rock around here somewhere on this beach. Oh yeah, here it is.
Why wouldn't there be?
Ethan is in a vulnerable position and can totally be stabbed, but Ambrose goes with the I'm going to kick you because it makes me feel better technique.
And then he immediately goes to stab him with him on the ground. Oh, wait. I know you're gonna show that right after, so that's another example of you not correcting yourself.
What the actual f*** am I watching?
Just like Tom Cruise climbing the mountain in the beginning, my only guess is that you're suggesting this is unrealistic. But just like that previous sin, this stunt was also practical. That is a real knife near Tom's eye.
Let's get lost.
And they lived happily ever after, because after all, she's in the next 3 chapters, right? Glad we spent so much time with this love story.
I see what you're saying, but wouldn't that be a sin for the other Mission Impossible films and not this one? And besides, I don't mind never seeing her again, since their romance felt really fake, as you said. Julio's much more genuine anyway.
Ethan, where's the rabbit's foot?
Oh man, they dragged Philip Seymour Hoffman into this, didn't they?
Sending Philip Seymour Hoffman, he was legit the best villain in the whole series.
Also, it took J.J. Abrams all of 45 seconds to turn the Mission Impossible franchise into an Alias spin-off.
Arbitrary TV reference.
You don't care about these people now, but you will by the time we show you this scene again, or something.
I cared. Sure, at this point we haven't met Julia yet, but the fact that Ethan cares so much about her is made very clear, so therefore I want to know why. And the scene does a great job differentiating itself from the last film with its darker and more serious tone.
It appears Julia has a strict Heinz policy for all her condiments.
Pointing things out on the screen.
Hey, that's Greg Grunberg from Alias and the first episode of Lost. You think this guy ever goes up to J.J. Abrams and says, "Dude, you've got the power now. Give me a good role. Let me play Ethan's short round or something"?
Well, if it makes you feel better, he played a Resistance pilot in Star Wars when Abrams eventually directed that. But I'm sending you for basically just going, "Hey, look, there's an actor I know." That's literally what this sin was.
I study traffic patterns. You can literally track the ripple effect of that action across a 200-mile stretch of road.
Well, I found it interesting. Just because you suck doesn't make it boring. Boobies! Damn, where am I? And who drew this dick on my face?
Jeremy says boner.
This is Ready Travel Resort Services.
This is clearly a freaking Alias episode. Good God, he's hiding his spy shit from his loved ones, pretending to be someone else. Sooner or later, you're going to introduce Rambaldi artifacts into this thing.
Dude, you already mentioned Alias twice. You don't need to do it again.
Take some pictures of the party for me.
I hope he keeps his receipt and bills the CIA for the price of this camera.
Okay.
Is it possible that the CIA downgraded their secret message delivery system? Yeah, let's forget MI2, but those were some slick-ass sunglasses.
Those sunglasses also made a huge explosion, but it didn't matter then because Ethan was in the middle of nowhere. Here, he's at his own house with his girlfriend. I think the IMF would want this to be more subtle.
It appears they have a hostage. We believe it's Agent Ferris. Normally we would disavow.
But have you seen Agent Ferris? She's Carrie Russell, and she's super hot. So the disavowing will be put on hold.
I'm glad you didn't say Carrie Russell isn't my girlfriend, but the same idea is still there.
Tom Cruise riding a motorcycle cliche.
Oh no. Are you gonna send this in every single movie?
Dude clearly said,
"Wheels up at sunrise if you have a change of heart."
But here's Ethan, arriving at a time where these shadows on the ground suggest the sun is already directly overhead. He's 5 or 6 hours late, but they still waited for him.
You can clearly see the shadows are facing this direction right here, so it is still sunrise, and he didn't exactly say what hour.
Why would 14 bad guys and a hostage set up shop in a place like this without setting up cameras, or at least lookouts and
We later find out that Musgrave set this up and wanted Ethan to rescue Lindsay.
So Raider 1, at some point we gotta go over this whole getting married thing.
Because I'm a man, and men tease and scold other men for getting married, even if they're out in the field on a dangerous mission.
No, it's because they're secret agents. Luther brings up a good point that marrying someone while you're an IMF agent is not a great idea. It's similar to superheroes, where if the villain finds out who you are, they'll capture whoever you love and use them as hostages. Which is exactly what happens in this movie, and why Julia isn't in the future movies very much.
You'd think J.J. Abrams would be above the I don't know what the hell is going on action scene, but he's not.
Pretty sure you're the only one who doesn't know what's going on, which doesn't surprise me.
Turn off your transmitter.
I've got something really important to say that I will never be able to tell you because I'm going to die soon, but it probably has something to do with one of our agents being a bad guy. Probably Billy Crudup, that asshole.
What's your point?
Wow, she was just in a drug-induced stupor, having been beaten up. He gave her an adrenaline shot, and I almost sinned how easily she was able to hobble along after that. But now this come on.
CinemaSins explained this really well, but to summarize, adrenaline gives a person more strength and focus. It's designed to protect one from deadly situations. This is realistic is what I'm saying.
Makes for a cool shot, I guess, but there is no way in hell they're all arriving back at the van at the exact same time.
That was literally the plan. They all meant to meet here around this time.
Guys, the missiles are on!
That's scary, but why'd it take so long? They've been following him for like 2 minutes.
Probably because he was trying to lock onto his target and avoid the windmills around him.
Okay, I can see why the good guys went through the windmill, since they're evading an attack. But the bad guys? Did they have any reason to risk their lives other than challenging Darwin?
They saw Declan fly through and are trying to catch up as quickly as possible. This is them not thinking clearly.
It's unacceptable that chocolate makes you fat, but I've eaten my share, and guess what?
You know what the Mission Impossible series needed? The hard-ass, totally unfair boss dude who thinks any kind of failure is avoidable. I mean, surely you have better ways to use Lawrence Fishburne, right?
I wouldn't describe Rassel like that at all. The mission was a failure, and he's pointing out mistakes they made. Not to mention, he's also a red herring.
I've been trying to bring Davian down since the day that I got him.
Does that mean you, too, are a failure at CIA?
No, it means Davian is just that good at evading the IMF. And speaking of, sorry I didn't mention this before, but why are you calling them the CIA when they've made it clear that this is the IMF?
Movie stops for a funeral because the mostly minor character was played by Carrie Russell. Unimportant training flashback.
This funeral is important for Ethan's character since he lost Lindsay, an agent he trained himself, and feels slightly guilty that he couldn't save her. That unnecessary flashback was there to quickly explain that.
Sent you a piece of mail from Berlin.
Instead of simply finding a way to call you about this extremely important information.
They are calling him? And they're calling about a message Lindsay sent from Berlin. What do you want to happen differently?
Magnetic means encrypted.
Yeah, I know that.
But Luther, the audience doesn't.
Yelling at the screen.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming it's like a code word for something he's about to sell to an unspecified buyer. Maybe it's just a really, really expensive bunny appendage.
I mean, Simon Pegg is just taking over for the Marshall Flinkman character in Alias here.
The 4th Alias mention. I haven't seen that show, so I can't say anything about it, but it's still annoying hearing you compare it.
So we're watching a movie about a technology that could be the end of the world. So of course the protagonist's fiancé works at a hospital.
You say that as if Julia being a doctor helps in this story, which it literally doesn't.
Ethan, what's going on?
Skipping this really compelling scene. You may not find this scene interesting, but I do.
Times like these, I really start to think of whatever happened to Naya from the last movie.
Since you already mentioned this in the last movie's video, this counts as double dipping.
Hereby take Ethan Matthew Hunt.
Oh yeah, I forgot something.
Skip a wedding? Aren't you married?
Do you mean to tell me that there are no guards here, and no one sees Ethan walking around the Vatican grounds about to shoot a thing towards their cameras?
Why would there be guards here? If some idiot climbed the wall, the cameras would catch them. They have no reason to anticipate the device Ethan just used.
They know this camera is out. That asshole radioed about it. So how is he able to just lie here on top of the wall with nobody in any of all those f***ing windows back there spotting it?
From their perspective, the camera was most likely losing its connection. It would take them a second to look out and check what's causing it.
I want to bitch about no one seeing this either, but honestly, do we have to have some version of this in all Mission Impossible movies?
Yes, we do. And again, you repeat things all the time.
Do guards at the Vatican really not know each other to the point that some dude they've never seen before can just wave people inside without consulting a higher authority?
Declan most likely told them that he has permission from higher authority.
Maggie Q seems kind of provocatively dressed for the Vatican, but I'm not complaining.
Sending something you like.
23 months, that's as long as it'll last.
Of all the things about this movie that might bother me, Luther constantly giving Ethan relationship advice throughout is near the top of the list. I mean, Luther?
Aside from the previous moment, this is the only time Luther brings it up, and then Ethan tells him that they're married, and he drops the topic.
Also, this whole plan relies on Davian going to the bathroom. But what if he never had to go to the bathroom? I admit, there's a decent chance he would have to go, but what if he didn't? Your plan is f***ed. You broke into the Vatican for nothing.
This is a massive CinemaSins L. Davian didn't go to the bathroom because he had to pee. He went because Zen spilled wine on his shirt, which I remind you was planned. She intentionally did that, knowing Davian would go to the bathroom. You can even see the wine stains on his shirt. The fact that you missed that is insane and not funny at all.
Much like the guard in T2, Davian does not scream with terror upon seeing his long-lost twin, which is good for the plot because there are guards outside the bathroom ready to defend this man's life. Meanwhile, why does Ethan even leave that to chance?
That's just you, dude. If I saw someone who looked exactly like me, I'd be speechless too.
Fine, wait outside.
But you are 3 inches shorter. That's amazing and concerning, but whatever.
You think he noticed that? Or even if he did, would care?
So we see Declan lowering Davian down somewhere. I guess it's the sewers. But the next time we see the whole team together is on a boat, where I guess they somehow dragged an unconscious Davian out without anyone seeing him and put him in the trunk or something.
It's most likely they found a tunnel that led to this river and left a boat there.
Ethan.
You mean you heard Luther say Ethan's name while you were dangling precariously from the airplane with 575-mile-per-hour wind in your face? Not only that, some seriously unprofessional behavior leads to Luther saying Ethan's name out loud.
Luther wasn't thinking clearly in this scene because he didn't want to see Ethan potentially kill Davian. I think it's likely that Davian knew something like this would happen, which is why he kept trying to push Ethan's buttons.
Ethan, we got it. Lindsay's microdot. It's a video file.
Well, convenient you sent this message in a complicated enough way that it took until this point in the plot for Luther to decipher the message.
I wouldn't say it's convenient, though. Way before this would have been nice.
It's Brassel. I think he's working with Davian.
Also, oh no, their CIA boss is evil? That's something I've never seen in a Mission Impossible movie, since the first one.
What version of Mission Impossible 1 did you watch? The only IMF boss we saw in that movie was Kittredge, and he wasn't evil. And if you're talking about Jim Phelps, he was an agent. And besides, you even admit that this isn't true. Brassel isn't the villain, Musgrave is, who isn't a boss. This entire sin is BS.
Also, this seems like a dangerous f***ing escape attempt. You're sure that your guys can aim those missiles in such a way that it won't hurt Davian?
Yes.
Helicopter guys not only wait forever to shoot Ethan, but move the helicopter out of the perfect position to shoot him before trying to shoot him. And let's not forget the trained soldier's horrible aim.
I'll admit you brought up a good point, but then you had to mention the horrible aim. Aiming guns is not as easy as you seem to think it is, especially while in a moving helicopter and while their targets are running.
This is a cool shot, and I love it, but the more I look at it, the less sense it makes.
Yeah, we're just not gonna listen to this and say you're sending something you like again.
Julia's in trouble, so there's instantly an awesome car Ethan can jump into after all the shit just went down on the bridge. And luckily, no traffic or wreckage to worry about.
Good point about there being no traffic in this shot, but are you saying none of these cars should work? How does that make sense to you?
Julia's on break, so of course she's walking down the hall where Michael Myers or Jason or Freddy is probably hanging out.
Arbitrary movie references.
Yours?
You hung me outside of an airplane.
God damn it, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Even posthumously, you're earning back sins for your greatness. 2 sins removed for this awesome performance.
I mean, I agree with you, and appreciate the sin removal, but you literally sinned Philip Seymour Hoffman for being in this video at all at the very start of this video. Like, do the 5 writers at CinemaSins not console each other at all?
IMF guys congregate at the hospital to catch Ethan, because they knew he'd be here, of course. I guess they tracked his phone once he fled the bridge? Who knows? Later, Musgrave says he tracked the call Davian made to it, but they would have had to intercept the call and get to the hospital in world record time to do that.
Yeah, I'm willing to buy that they tracked his phone, but they did that while he was running to the hospital, not when Davian was calling him.
Also, real IMF people come with orders to take Ethan just as he finds out he has 48 hours to save his wife. Even if Davian or Billy Crudup somehow orchestrated this, the timing is more than convenient enough to deserve sinning.
Hold on, Ethan was just told that he has 48 hours to save his wife, and you're saying the IMF showing up to arrest him is convenient? No, I'd say this was actually inconvenient, since Ethan lost some of that time before finally flying to Shanghai.
Not one of these 3 assholes even looks at super spy prisoner Ethan Hunt during this elevator ride.
The only reason Ethan escapes here is because Musgrave gave him a pocket knife. They have no reason to assume that he'll be able to find a way out.
Hunt was flagged on Sub-Basement 9.
Jesus, is he imitating Brassel right now? Who needs a fucking voice modulator when you can sound exactly like the person you need to sound like?
I mean, it's not that hard to do a Lawrence Fishburne impression.
Irony.
Okay, so?
I hear next door John Cusack is going crazy with all that paranormal activity going on in the room, and Samuel L. Jackson is somewhere around because he's always around.
I don't even know what he's referencing, but still, arbitrary movie reference.
And we have 2 hours before they kill my wife.
So you're expecting to be able to get the gear you need to do this insane plan, and then actually carry out the plan, and then call Davian about the rabbit's foot in 2 hours?
And they were able to do all that, so yes.
Okay, so he didn't fall to the ground, but at the height he fell and the velocity with which he crashed into that window, isn't he still dead?
I'm no physics expert, but that doesn't look deadly to me.
Lamppost ex machina.
Even though literally every single street in the middle of a city has lampposts, meaning this isn't a solution that comes from nowhere. Seriously, I'm starting to wonder what dictionary you read.
Movie expects me to believe Ethan is going to drop the one thing keeping his wife alive.
I can believe it, since he's still human and can make mistakes, and he was falling and was unexpectedly caught by that lamppost.
This car chase scene is filled with so much shaky camera movement and so many edits and confusion, why even bother keeping up?
Well, when you speed up the footage, you can fall for that. But in the regular speed footage, I was able to follow this action sequence just fine.
Alright, we're back to where we were at the beginning. Can we just go straight to the end of the countdown? We can just go straight to the end of the countdown, right? Right?
We don't watch the entire scene all over again, just the cliff notes so the audience remembers what was happening. And I think it's needed too, now that we have the context for who Julia is and why the rabbit's foot is so important.
You know, I really love Michael Giacchino, but he does a lot of his Lost score in this movie.
The second Mission Impossible movie in a row where you send music for sounding similar? Okay, sure.
Oh no, the other CIA boss is evil? That's something I've never seen in a Mission Impossible movie, since the first one.
Yeah, I'm not repeating all that BS I said the first time you said this.
Why is Musgrave not putting this phone on speaker? Does his CIA training not tell him what a bad idea this is?
That's a theme in these movies. Everyone underestimates Ethan.
God, if it wasn't for the motorcycle thing, there'd be a clear problem with the number of movies where Tom Cruise's character full-out sprints. And holy shit is he running! It's like they took the Tom Cruise running cliche and embraced it.
Don't care what else you're gonna say here. Sinning Tom Cruise sprinting. That's part of what makes his movies so darn fun.
Superstar spy Ethan Hunt, everyone.
Ethan may be brilliant, but again, he's not perfect. And he's currently afraid his wife might die, so he's emotionally distracted.
First rule of finding your wife held hostage is remove the tape from her mouth.
Ethan immediately feels the effects of the explosive inside his head before he could do that. convenient that you cut that out.
You have maybe 4 minutes left.
Whatever the movie decides, it's enough time to keep you alive. I don't know, I haven't figured that out yet. But I know when I survive this, I'm going to make a faster acting capsule, first thing in the morning.
This is meant to show how evil Davian is, forcing Ethan to feel pain slowly before he finally dies.
For any reason, Ethan gets his ass kicked by Davian.
So, if I told you that he feels the explosive in his head, which gives him a massive headache, and Davian is clearly a capable fighter, would you not accept that reason?
Jesus, dude, if you have the energy and the wherewithal to do this, why were you letting Davian kick your ass so hard a minute ago?
Because he started to get used to the pain and figured out how to use it against him.
Ethan's head is about to explode, but sure, let's do some nookie.
Ethan might die here. At least one more kiss before he's potentially gone.
How do you know so much about this?
Julia, after being kidnapped and sent to Shanghai, and after you saw your husband running to save you, what the f*** do you think? And did you never see True Lies or Alias?
We get it. This is like Alias. We got it the first 4 times you said that.
What?
Throw the switch on and off. Don't forget the off. You can bring me back.
I realize he's in pain and freaking out, but Ethan could not be giving his wife more confusing instructions right now if he tried.
What was so confusing about those instructions? He's telling her to flip a switch, which will theoretically deactivate the explosive. Oh, that's right. This is CinemaSins we're talking about here.
Evil CIA guy gets the jump on novice gun wife, but she still wins this confrontation because climax.
Because she shot first?
One thing. Rabbit's foot. What is it?
Promise me you'll stay, I'll tell you.
It's a MacGuffin. Yeah, I don't know what that means either.
Thank you. This is legit my one complaint with this otherwise pretty good movie. J.J. Abrams is way too obsessed with mystery boxes, man. I'm telling you. Oh well, at least it's better than not explaining how Palpatine returned.
52 seconds of logos!
2 seconds of pointing things out on the screen.
Hey, it's Josh Holloway, which if Lost or Aerosmith videos have taught me anything, means he's a scoundrel and or a bad guy here.
Hey, it's Jeremy Renner, who we've also seen play a sidekick in the MCU. See, I can do that too.
These guys completely miss him, but he hits both of them while falling.
He's an IMF agent, dude. Feel like he has better training.
I don't know, I see a hot lady walking down an alley after I just did some super spy shit. I'd probably be suspicious, but maybe they don't teach the danger of boners at spy school.
Except he is suspicious when his contact lenses warn him about her. Also, Jeremy says boner.
Wow, that text about this possible assassin actually killed him by distracting him from the actual assassin. Later we find out that Hanaway's fancy contacts recognize Sabine's face and send a message to his phone, which distracts him here and gets him killed. But later we find out he can see that without looking at his phone, so what the fuck?
No, it was more like Moreau shot him before he could think. Later, Jane explains that his lens warned him, but it was too late.
Ethan Hunt is a dick to his sleeping cellmates.
Considering these cellmates are in prison for presumably doing some bad things, they probably deserve this.
This prisoner is suddenly emboldened just because his cell door mysteriously opened. Why does he think he's got the upper hand?
Well, technically, in the full scene, one of the other prisoners was talking to him, and he tried shushing him, and this alerted the guard, so that's why he thought that.
Why do some of these cells have one dude, and others have 2 dudes? And this room has 4 dudes in it. This prison is making it up as it goes along.
Another case of you criticizing something that is real. Google confirms that Moscow prison cells can hold up to 8 prisoners. Do your research next time.
Ethan improvises to break out one of his buddies during a highly sensitive prison break plan. He's so confident in his skills, a massive chaotic fight in a tiny space doesn't worry him. And the ability to tow a completely untrained person back through it isn't given a second thought.
Yeah, this guy is Ethan freaking Hunt. I think it's really sinful that you think he can't do this.
Yeah, better not show how Ethan got out of this, because it would be bullshit anyway.
Huh. Just like the characters in these movies, you seem to really underestimate Ethan Hunt.
Luckily, every prisoner on this level was absolutely ready and waiting by their doors as soon as it opened.
Well, think about it. Multiple doors have been opening, and they've noticed it, so they most likely were waiting for theirs to open so they can fight their way out. I think that makes perfect sense.
Is this the fuse we'd see in a Naked Gun movie?
Arbitrary movie reference.
Spoiler credits.
Honestly, these credits felt more like a trailer, and yet we're still okay with those being around, even if some of them do spoil too much. Looking at you, Fast and Furious.
Paula Patton is, damn, simply not my girlfriend. I'm a failure.
Does your wife know that you said this?
What the f*** is he doing? It looked like he was trying to find Moreau, but he's just standing there, pointing his gun at nothing in particular. Moreau just left the scene, too.
He didn't see her, though, and he's afraid the assassin might still be around. Man, you'd be a terrible secret agent if you don't have your gun out to protect yourself.
New intel suggests Cobalt is already en route, leaving you
4 hours, 52 minutes
to infiltrate.
4 hours and 52 minutes to infiltrate the Kremlin. Sounds legit.
It's literally in Moscow, where they are now. They're not that far away.
So they went from high-8 tapes to HD Oakley sunglasses to Kodak instant cameras to dirty-ass payphones with digital iPad screens. Jesus, IMF's mission delivery tech department is all over the place.
How are you on the 4th movie and you still haven't figured out that the IMF uses multiple ways to communicate with their agents? I mean, think about what you're saying. The videotape stopped being used, the sunglasses made too big of an explosion, and payphones are barely used anymore. They have to have multiple devices because these missions are urgent.
Yeah, better make sure this message self-destructs. God knows how many people out there have Ethan's eyes, know the code he punched in, and could stumble on this payphone figuring out all sorts of secrets.
Better to be safe than sorry.
I think that went quite well.
It's absolutely bonkers that the IMF didn't send another person with way more experience than Benji to be part of this team. We're talking nuclear launch codes here, priority number 1 on their list, and they send a guy who just recently became an agent.
Maybe the other agents weren't available. I think that's possible. And while Benji is new, he's still capable enough to do this mission. I mean, you're saying this as if he screws something up, and he doesn't. So this question doesn't matter.
Any tech security camera companies can come up with is always instantly rendered moot with the placement of a simple device, mirror, or a can of spray paint.
Yeah, because the IMF is that good.
Okay, this technology may be bullshit as hell, but I don't give a shit. The scene is tense, comical, and plot related, and I'm giving this movie 2 cents off for this stuff.
I like this scene too, especially the way it calls back to the first movie with its complete silence and no music. Take a sit off for recognizing greatness.
Well, how many noises is this guy going to be distracted by? He just got back to his seat from investigating the last phantom noise.
Well, what do you expect him to do? Not check the noise that he heard? He'd be a really bad guard if that's the case.
Have you made it to the archive room?
How do you broadcast on all signals, including this Kremlin secure channel and the IMF secure channel?
As well as Ethan Hunt, you seem to underestimate the crazy technology in these movies.
Ethan doesn't think much of this guy now, but is pretty sure Hendricks is behind all this when he turns the corner and sees the safe open. So why doesn't he follow him? This guy, of all people, would know where to go to be safe from the explosion, and Ethan's no slouch in the beating ass department, so it's extremely strange he lets this guy go.
Hendricks is no slouch either, if the ending of this movie is to be believed. And Ethan clearly took a note of him to catch him later, and like you said, there's a bomb that's about to go off.
Hey, look, Tom Cruise is running fast again. Man, I'm starting to wonder if maybe he does this more than riding motorcycles in movies.
Sending Tom Cruise sprinting like a champ.
Ethan outruns these explosions like he's the goddamn Starship Enterprise. Here's yet another explosion that merely knocks Ethan to one side or the other, instead of rightfully killing his fool ass.
So you say in the first scene that Ethan was able to outrun these explosions, and then the very next scene show him not being able to outrun these explosions?
Ah, I see. Ethan saw Terminator 2.
Arbitrary movie reference.
A wire is somehow perfectly positioned coming out of this random spot of the hospital for Ethan to do this.
So, like real life Moscow then?
European male. 50s, about 6 foot, 180 pounds. Blue eyes. Who is he?
Well, that description and your crude hand drawing probably means only one person.
Well, judging by Brandt's explanation of Hendricks' background...
Crude drawing, but by your description, that could be Kurt Hendricks. 190 IQ. Served in Swedish Special Forces. Professor of Physics, Stockholm University. Specialist in nuclear endgame theory. Asked to resign, well, because he's crazy.
Yeah, I feel like he was the best guess.
Could be weeks before the Russians know what's missing, unless we tell them.
They won't listen to us.
Yeah, so it's better to just not tell them, because who believes in covering all bases? And why would the Russians do something smart, like changing their launch codes just in case the Americans might not be bullshitting them?
Tom Wilkinson goes on to explain why the Russians wouldn't believe the IMF.
As far as the Russians are concerned, we just bombed the Kremlin.
But why? Because one American was found outside in the debris? Because it's still the Cold War? Because the plot demands it?
Oh, you heard that? And still kept that previous sin in? And the reason why they think Ethan did it is because of this scene back in the hospital.
American. But we both know that the real cause of the explosion was you.
Awaiting your go sign, team leader. Standing by to detonate.
The worst part for you, team leader, is I am the man assigned to make you suffer for it. For what you did to my country.
Today? Really? He escaped prison, then planned the Kremlin mission, then got knocked out from the explosion, then escaped the hospital and had this car ride with IMF peeps all in one day?
Yes.
Flare on the body. Why would that work?
You might think we'd believe Brandt would be excellent at CinemaSins, but in this case, no. Of course the guys with guns would shoot at it. Why wouldn't they? Are they going to believe Ethan set up a dead body as a diversion? We would have sent it if they somehow knew not to shoot at it. Movie's attempt to defend itself in this case, even cheekily, is unnecessary.
I mean, Brandt kind of brings up a good point, though. A guy tries to swim away and then lights a flare, giving away his position. That's a dumb move, but the guys who were shooting had a lot of adrenaline and weren't thinking clearly, and so shot a clear target.
Retinal scanner.
Luckily, this thing has a couple handlebars right next to it, just in case you need to hold yourself steady while being scanned.
How does that make any sense to you? This train wouldn't always be standing still. It makes sense to have these handlebars here to help agents get in.
Ethan?
Why would Benji and Jane think anyone other than an IMF agent could get into this car with a f***ing retinal scanner outside?
Better to be safe than sorry.
Intel indicates she will check into the Burj Hotel in Dubai in 36 hours.
Also, why hasn't Moreau already sold these launch codes? She took them 2 days ago, and it's going to be another couple of days before she sells them to Hendricks, because IMF agents always have time.
Maybe there were other things that both parties had to deal with. Maybe this upcoming day was the best time to schedule a free moment for both. Again, I think these scenarios are possible.
We're shut down. No satellite safe house, support, or extraction.
Only this super high-tech train with all the weapons and gear we could possibly need. That's all we have at our disposal.
I mean, there are multiple points where the gadgets malfunction throughout this movie, and it's pretty lucky they were able to get through these missions. I'd say his point still stands.
If you'd seen this zoom in and over the Burj Khalifa shot in IMAX like I did, you'd know exactly why I'm taking a sin off here.
Sadly, I was too young to see this in IMAX, but I believe you. Even watching this movie at home, this scene is awesome, and one of the best sequences in the franchise. Take another sin off.
Glove begins to malfunction for the sake of the scene's tension.
And this is one of the reasons why this sequence is so great, because one of the gloves stops working and forces Ethan to get creative with his climbing. Honestly, I would have removed another sin for this movie, creating amazing tension.
Ethan falls this far, but the movie glosses over his climb back up like it's f***ing nothing.
Do you really want to see that all over again, which would have padded the runtime?
By the way, despite having top-notch security in this room, Burj Hotel decides that no determined person could ever come through the glass and doesn't put an alarm on it.
This is the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world. Why would any robber even think to try and get this high to get through the windows?
You guys knew exactly who you needed to make masks for, but you waited until the last minute to start the process. Why not on the train?
Doesn't matter though, because I think this machine would have stopped working then too.
Goggles.
Ridiculously detail-oriented super spy Ethan Hunt forgets he has his goggles around his neck because he's going to need them later during the sandstorm scene.
Oh no, a character made a mistake. You're really expecting Ethan to be perfect here?
Earlier we saw Benji changing the numbers on the doors so that the bad guys would go into the wrong room. But even though Benji has control of the elevators, there isn't any explanation that he can fool the elevator into displaying the wrong floor. This is from a movie that tells us every other aspect of the plan.
Benji has been messing with the elevator by having it stop at the wrong floor. You don't think he can change the number to fool the bad guys?
Come on. First off, I know we can see it since the camera is getting an extreme close-up of his eye. But how can she from where she's sitting? Second off, slick super spy is somehow this easily detectable just by looking at it.
When Moreau gave Brandt the launch codes, he needed to blink twice to copy the codes onto the paper for Jane to give to Hendricks. Moreau noticed this and was clearly suspicious. That's why she looked closely at Brandt's eyes and saw the lens.
Fight gives character who wanted to murder someone for revenge a non-revenge reason to murder that person.
If she didn't have revenge reasons, I don't think she'd kick her out the window.
Ethan bails out of a car going over 50 miles an hour and suffers no consequences.
This is the same series that already has a bunch of ridiculous gadgets that have no basis in real life. If you were able to suspend your disbelief for that, then surely you can for stuff like this.
Even if he knows for a fact who you are after pulling off a piece of that mask earlier, what's the freaking point?
It's just so he can mess with him.
Max's henchman from the first movie got out of prison and just happens to work for the one guy Ethan needs to give him information. And is using the same covert traveling techniques.
The real sin is that this person that Ethan's been calling and gets info from should have been Max. Like, why would you have the same henchman, but not Max herself?
Brandt's backstory super coincidentally involves Ethan Hunt and his supposedly dead wife, which is extra weird, given how accidentally Brandt came to be part of Ethan's current crew.
Another one of those coincidence sins. You know, it sure is convenient that Moreau and Wistrom hadn't met before so the team's plan could work. Get it?
This entire operation relies on Jane being the hottest, most alluring woman at this party, which I admit is kind of hard to fault, but how do we know Halle Berry isn't wandering around? Or Selena Gomez? Did I say Selena Gomez? I meant Betty White. Sorry about that.
You think it's just her looks? What about how she interacts with Nath?
Why am I Pluto? It's not even a planet anymore.
Movie rips off and updates the Mr. Pink argument from Reservoir Dogs.
How is it a ripoff if this is an argument in real life?
Impressed yet?
For this scene's motivation, Paula Patton was forced to pretend her pop star husband had cheated on her, and she was after revenge.
Anyone laughing? Anyone?
Saturn, take the leap.
By the way, why can't he do what Ethan did in the other Mission Impossible movies and just have some climber's cables and rappel down the tunnel? Couldn't he at least do that instead of jumping 25 feet to his possible death, then use the cool magnet thing later?
But why do that when the magnet is right there to catch him? The cables would have taken a lot more time, and they need to be quick about this.
Wow, this maneuver couldn't have been more convenient. Not only did he miss that killer turbine, it even blew him closer to the ventilation shaft.
I don't see how this is convenient, since it's at full power.
My frustration at seeing Ethan escape requires the undoing of my tie. My relief at having escaped requires the undoing of my tie.
Two of the most nothing sins I have ever seen.
Tom Cruise runs really fast past a bunch of motorcycles.
But wouldn't you have sinned Tom Cruise for riding a motorcycle?
This fight goes on far too long for one that includes Ethan Hunt and a really old pudgy dude.
Which further proves that Hendricks is a really capable fighter.
Honestly, I feel like I could have gotten this case by now. I know he's hurt, but it's like both of these guys are coated in butter during this entire scene.
You can barely pay attention to movies. I object.
That is a terrible idea. And of course he survives. He should have just jumped. Airbags are not f***ing beanbag chairs.
You just saw Hendricks jump, and he could barely move. Yes, this still wounds him, but at least the airbags give him a somewhat softer landing than just falling onto the floor.
And if it hadn't been for dumb luck, was it?
Yes, it was.
Yelling at the screen.
So you had to fake your wife's death. As long as we're together, she can never be safe.
I just don't see how that can be true. If you work at the CIA, aren't there all sorts of options to keep you protected? Plus, I don't know how you continue to do this kind of work if you're so easy to identify or locate.
We already talked about this in the last movie. Ethan and Julia breaking up like this is the best way to protect her just in case. Better to be safe than sorry. Sure, maybe the IMF could have ways to protect her, but Ethan clearly wants her to live a normal life.
Surprise cameo is not really all that surprising if you've seen a couple of movies before. But oh well, I'm glad they have this weird arrangement that doesn't make any sense, those crazy kids.
Or it isn't a surprise, and it's just a fun cameo like it was when Luther popped up in this same scene. And it does make sense. Don't make me repeat myself again.
You want to bring down the syndicate? It's impossible.
This has got to be a world record for logo endurance, right? 65 seconds?
No, seriously. What else can I even say about these logo sins? You all know why it's annoying, right?
In case you confused it with Minsk, Minnesota.
Well, how many people know where Minsk is, except the people who live there? I didn't know.
This isn't going very well.
I am aware of that, Brandt. You're not helping.
Jeremy Renner plays yet another character in yet another crime-fighting team and is yet again informed of his worthlessness.
Except Brandt isn't worthless in this movie, as he helps Ethan complete the missions. And I personally never understood Hawkeye being worthless in the MCU. Like, this movie came out the same year as Age of Ultron, the movie where he incapacitated the Scarlet freaking Witch, helped the Avengers recover at his house, and bring the Cradle to Avengers Tower, which resulted in Vision's creation. Wait, what movie am I talking about again?
The package is still on that plane.
Unnecessary reminders.
This is meant to tell Benji and Ethan to hurry up and get the package off the dang plane.
Perfect grassy runway for Ethan to run and jump over to the departing plane is perfect.
Yeah, it's perfect. What's the problem?
If you think I'm not going to remove 5 sins for this badassery, you are dead wrong.
I don't like removing that many sins. One is already enough. But yes, you do deserve a send-off for praising this sequence. Still crazy that Tom Cruise did this stunt for real.
Movie forgets to show us the scene where Ethan dies and goes straight to the opening credits.
Why would this have killed him? They're high enough from the ground, and Ethan let out the parachute. What's deadly about this?
More spoiler credits.
More complaining about credits that don't even spoil any plot points.
You looking for anything in particular?
Something rare.
This old school specific conversation in a public place spy is still being employed and still works. Encrypted email. Ethan, go to the record store.
Why wouldn't this work?
Also, how is it arranged that someone like Ethan is told to go to a record store to find the latest spy message? This seems tremendously unsecure.
Solomon Lane probably sent a message to Ethan to go here, and he was able to fool him into thinking it was coming from the IMF. How exactly it happened doesn't really matter, and would have only padded the runtime.
It really is you.
What? After playing the spy game perfectly, this record store chick just can't resist making sure it really is Ethan Hunt she's talking to? For real?
Well, yeah. The lady says herself that the store is closing, and it's practically empty. And come on, this man has done a ton of insane things in the past 4 movies. Frankly, I would have asked more questions.
The same shadow organization you have been tracking for the last year.
You mean Spectre?
Oh, great. We're back to referencing James Bond? Is it really a sin that we have 2 spy movie franchises?
Ethan pounds on the glass many times, but I don't think he even once tried the door's handle. Might be unlocked. You never know.
Jeremy, did you seriously think Lane didn't lock the door? Ethan was looking at the message almost the whole time and wouldn't be looking out, giving Lane the perfect opportunity to trap him. Are you seriously telling me you couldn't figure that out?
Insufficient Ethan Hunt present. Also, I'm going to make an invention known as the perpendicular pipe, so that heroes can't wriggle their way off of pipes to which they've been tied. I'll make billions in fake movie dollars.
How many times do I have to tell you that the characters within these movies underestimate Ethan Hunt?
This girl needs to unbutton her blouse before questioning a spy. I'm not complaining, just sending it.
Sending something you like.
And then all the other bad guys stand around like this is no big deal. Also, why did they leave his legs unbound? He's a freaking super spy.
You're literally showing one of the goons running over to Vinter, so they're not just standing around.
Tom Cruise only needed to channel his far and away days to complete this shirtless raw boxing scene.
Arbitrary movie reference.
These assholes outside have been listening this entire time, yet only now decide to see if maybe those noises inside are bad.
They probably assumed Vinter and Ilsa had it under control, but after it went on for a little too long, they started getting worried.
I tried to stop you. You got away.
Who are you?
Yeah, Ethan, we totally have time for this.
He doesn't know if he'll see her again, and she's a person that has never met him before who saved him. I'd want to know who she is too.
Make it count. Brad.
Mysterious dial tone after person on the other line hangs up cliche. Also, loud-ass dial tone is loud as f***.
That was 2 sins for the same thing. Double dipping.
This entire scene, before you even get to the reveal, is basically telling you Ethan and the CIA guys are not even in the same zip code, even though it's trying desperately not to do that. It's an audience mind so routine that it's time to start scouring the Kama Sutra to spice up this marriage.
So you're sending the movie for tricking the audience into thinking that the CIA has finally found Ethan, only to reveal that it's the wrong location? Why exactly is that something wrong with this movie?
I'm shocked some text didn't flash on the bottom of the screen that told us Paris, Bolivia. I mean France. Gosh, I get those confused sometimes.
Okay, but you usually send the movie for giving you the location through text, and now you're sending the movie for not doing that? Shouldn't you have just kept the send counter the same and move on? Or better yet, don't bring it up at all?
Benji has to hide his Halo 5 gameplay, not because he's in the CIA now, but because Halo 5 won't be released until 3 months after this movie, which means he's playing a bootlegged as hell copy.
This implies that either Halo 5 came out earlier in-universe, or the movie takes place 3 months later. Actually, there was a 6-month time jump that you didn't mention, so maybe by the time those 6 months have passed, Halo 5 came out.
Guy who gets questioned by Alec Baldwin every week about Ethan Hunt's whereabouts is somehow able to just up and leave his desk and fly to f***ing Vienna without telling anyone.
But Hundley later shows that he knows about these opera tickets, so Benji probably did tell them.
Oh, I didn't win those opera tickets, did I?
It's amazing how close this movie and Spectre are in terms of plot. Of course, this movie came out first, but that's not going to prevent us from sitting both movies for the same thing.
Jeremy goes on a bit longer comparing this movie to Spectre, but I want to stop there, because he literally admits this movie came first. So this should be a sin for Spectre, not Rogue Nation.
Oh, I didn't win those opera tickets, did I?
No, I'm afraid not.
Wait, did he actually think he'd won those things at random? Seriously?
Yes.
Nobody who works security for a living has apparently ever seen a movie before. Distorted screens means you've been hacked, sticks. The Chancellor of Austria is here. His life is in your hands, dude.
The only reason you're saying this is because you know this is a Mission Impossible movie and that this kind of thing happens. But the characters in-universe would just assume the cameras are cutting out for a bit and are fixable.
This woman's dress is scandalous. I mean, scanning the foyer for movie sins, negative.
Sending something you like.
And movie cuts straight from her walking up the main stairs to being backstage, with no clue as to how she got backstage.
She's a spy working for MI6. That's good enough for me.
For some reason, super spy Ethan Hunt doesn't have a silenced pistol on his person at all times, for occasions such as this.
Where would he have gotten one? And sure, I guess he would have stolen one somewhere, because he's Ethan Hunt, but I could see that maybe the Chancellor's assassination was something he found out about at the last minute, so maybe he didn't have enough time to get one.
The stage director sees this and yet does not try to move the switch back into place, probably because she knows it helps the tension of the action.
She most assuredly would have moved it, but she didn't because the other assassin immediately comes into the lighting booth and either incapacitates or kills her.
This opera scene is amazing, and we're removing 5 sins for it, but I'd remove 5 sins for this shot alone.
Agreed.
I don't know what else is waiting for. She had a perfect shot for 15 minutes now. Even when we find out later she was just going to shoot the guy's shoulder, she could have done it by now.
You don't know what she's waiting for? Oh, that sucks. If only there was a scene that explains this. Like, maybe she's waiting for a specific note in the song that's the loudest and therefore wouldn't be heard by the audience. Oh well, too bad that scene doesn't exist.
Luck stumble.
How is this luck? Benji knew this switch would turn on the lights, and he came in here to take out the assassin. Is paying attention to a movie too difficult for you?
No one notices this.
How do you know that? I think it's extremely likely someone noticed this, but the movie didn't show it because it's not important.
So this world leader dude was gonna die no matter what. 3 assassins at the opera, a bomb in the car. If he'd somehow made it home, there would have been a gas leak, an electrical fire, and an armed break-in. Also, if the Syndicate could kill the Chancellor like this, then why did they even bother hiring 3 assassins to do the job in the opera house?
The movie later says that this was Lane's backup plan, just in case the assassins failed.
Also, while the preceding opera scene was amazeballs, it's now rendered almost 100% moot. Awesome.
It's not, though. This sequence was meant to test Ilsa's loyalty to the Syndicate, and it brings Ethan and Benji together for the rest of the movie.
The car bomb was insurance.
Sure it was. I still don't know why you don't just explode the guy in the first place. In fact, it seems like you have so many connections you could have just poisoned his coffee this morning.
I just spent the last 2 sins explaining this, though I guess here's a third explanation. Assassinating him in the middle of an opera where only a few people notice him is a much better idea than just blowing up his car.
You know what would have been awesome? Sneaking George Clooney or some A-lister's face into the slideshow of MIF agents. Instead, just some models. Shame.
Don't you mean the IMF, not MIF?
He slipped away again in Jakarta.
Ethan is telling Benji the 3 or 4 times he failed to catch the Syndicate guy, and I'm wondering, is this really Ethan Hunt? The Ethan Hunt we know is so good that failing even once is hard to believe.
Funny, coming from the guy who has been underestimating Ethan for 5 movies now. And to be fair, he was all alone with all of these situations. In most of these movies, he always has the team with him to help him accomplish missions.
Bad guy acts like he's going to kill one person, but ends up killing a completely different person as a surprise cliche. Either that, or his aim is really that bad.
I would have let this sin slide, but then you had to suggest maybe Lane accidentally shot the wrong person. Again, if you actually paid attention to the movie, you would have noticed that he thinks Ilsa can still help, since he asks her if Ethan said anything to her.
A note with lipstick kisses on it somehow goes unnoticed until the 2 white foreigners stroll through town.
Are you suggesting someone would have taken this note down? Why?
Also, in Moroccan, this note means blowjob.
Unfunny joke is unfunny.
MI5 definitely has time for the overused hot spy girl we're not sure we can trust gets out of the pool cliche.
Has any other spy movie done this other than James Bond? Or was this your way of referencing those movies again?
I know Ethan. I don't know you. All I know about you is that you chose to work for Hunley.
Actually, no. At the end of Ghost Protocol, you were at the table when this guy walked up. You know for a fact that Ethan trusts him, so go f*** a log, asshat.
You just played him saying that Brandt chose to work for Hunley. Yes, Luther saw him at the end of the last movie, but we haven't been given any proper scene between them to build trust.
These cameras actually know how the agent walks.
So you can't access this place if you suddenly have a limp? Good system.
Yeah, sure. That probably means he wouldn't be able to come into work and he'd have to wait to heal.
All he has to do is install the fake profile before I get to the gate analysis.
Once again, for some reason, these tasks need to be done at virtually the same time for some reason. I don't know why Ethan can't try the profile thing first, then Benji goes to the terminal after everything is installed, but what do I know?
Obviously, this is done to make the scene more exciting, but I don't see why they shouldn't do this. Considering this mission ultimately succeeds, I don't think this question is relevant.
Also, are these the most accurate eyewitness sketches in the history of ever?
Did you forget about Ghost Protocol, which you already brought up in this video? Ethan drew Hendricks' face on his hand, so it's already been established he can memorize faces and draw them with accuracy.
Point Break remake outdone by unrelated fifth film in a franchise.
So, this movie does something better than the Point Break remake, and that's worth a sin?
That's great, but what if you missed?
Why is that a sin of this movie? He didn't miss, so this question is irrelevant. You're basically just asking a question because you're curious.
iPad hacking. Also, you gotta love the Internet of Things, where an iPad is literally all you need to break into a place.
That's not an iPad. It's a Microsoft Surface, and it's also spy tech, which is clearly more advanced than regular tech.
One more time. You'll have 3 minutes.
Going over the plan one more time, mere seconds before executing said plan, is pointless, unless you're trying to cram some much-needed exposition into the film before a huge action sequence.
He's still a human being, though, and needs to remember all the little details about this plan. That's something I would have appreciated.
I mean, seriously, why can't Benji wait in the lobby while all this other goes down? This simultaneous bullshit is insane.
Double dipping.
The entire plan hinges on the hope that no one looks up.
Why would they? They're clearly busy and have no reason to look up at a random platform.
And I've already drowned twice just watching this scene.
So you're saying you're not able to hold your breath for a long time. Don't get me wrong, I can't either. But you know who can? Tom Cruise. He trained for this and was able to hold his breath for up to 6 minutes. This is not a sin in the movie since it really happened.
One of the most tense action sequences of 2015.
I find it weird that you didn't sin this movie for creating tension like you did with Ethan losing his glove in the last movie, but whatever. I still agree with you. Take off another sin.
Do computers work this way? This system analyzed Benji's gait for 75% of his walk down the hall, but had no profile to verify it until just now. The computer thinks nothing is wrong with that and doesn't raise any red flags.
Well, yeah, it was loading until a chip was placed. The guards could just see this as a little glitch, or maybe it's moving slower than usual.
One of these days, you're gonna take it too far.
One of these days?
Jeremy yells at the screen.
I said I could locate him. You have to find him.
Right. I'll take statements that make no sense for 800, Alex.
Care to elaborate?
This guy decided to dress as an X-Man for this assault, and some kind of henchman boss approved that decision.
Arbitrary movie reference.
Apparently there was no better way to incapacitate the other bikes or riders besides this donut spin of luck, executed after all the bad guys were already on their bikes and
What other way was there? The only one I can think of is fighting them all one by one, but that would have taken longer than just doing this. And this looks easier anyway.
There she is! How the do you know?
Because he saw her face under the helmet?
These assholes recover from being wiped out by a spy chick in record time to be this close to the main chase.
How long do you think it should have taken for them to get up and turn on their bikes? And they haven't gotten that far at this point.
With no idea who this is, and only knowing he's disrupting the chase, half the bikes turn to follow Ethan. It's almost like you can't have a high-pulse action film these days without having the bad guys make seriously dumb decisions.
Because they could clearly see that Ethan and Benji are also chasing after Ilsa, and so want to make sure they don't get the disc. At least it's not all the bikes.
Ethan is addicted to baskets.
Well, he did just wake up from being dead.
Really great Mission Impossible movie somehow feels the need for a visual callback to the worst Mission Impossible movie in the franchise.
Mission Impossible 2 wasn't great, I agree with that. But the motorcycle chase was the best sequence in that entire movie.
Also, Tom Cruise riding a motorcycle cliche.
Sending Tom Cruise riding a motorcycle cliche.
My question is, who placed Ethan at this table and propped him up to make him seem alive? My guess is it's those crazy kids from Weekend at Bernie's.
Arbitrary movie reference.
That's a red box.
A what? It's a red box.
I find it hard to believe that any of these savvy 2015 spies are unaware of the prevalence of Redbox.
And a Redbox joke. Like, that was way too easy, dude.
I think of all the people in this station, my favorite are the blonde girl and her boyfriend, who are rushing to catch a train to run away to
skip.
Because we're in the spy world, I guess we're just gonna accept that a cell phone has the capability of wirelessly reading a disconnected flash drive and deleting its contents.
Have I mentioned this is the same world that has face masks that are completely unrealistic? This franchise already has ridiculous technology.
Benji.
How did all these trained super spies not see Benji get kidnapped?
Because A, they were paying attention to Ilsa, B, the Syndicate would make sure to be quiet about it, and C, they're in the middle of a railway station with a ton of people walking around. I find it believable they didn't notice.
is not possible, movies. Stop telling me it is.
Except it is possible. If you slow down the footage, you can clearly see Rebecca Ferguson walking away right here, meaning this was done in camera.
We have to take the Prime Minister.
5th Mission Impossible movie steals from the 2nd National Treasure movie.
Dang, how many arbitrary movie references are you gonna make?
It looks like Lane came straight from the set of Sprockets.
Okay, not technically a movie this time, but you get the idea.
Unsurprising mask reveal in a Mission Impossible movie is unsurprising.
Doesn't make it any less cool.
I am the disc. I memorized it. All 2.4 billion in numbered accounts.
No, you didn't.
To be fair, we never actually see Ethan say this stuff out loud, and he even mentions that it's possible he might be bluffing, but Lane doesn't know if this is true or not, and so turns off the bomb just in case.
This movie is about to show me everything I've been watching for the last 20 minutes as part of an elaborate Ethan Hunt ruse to catch the bad guy in a literal glass box. Fine. Okay. But how the did Ethan's plan account for this frantic foot chase and the whereabouts of the bad guys during it?
Do you think that Ethan didn't anticipate goons that he'd have to fight? It's also strange how sometimes you suggest he's a super spy and should be perfect, but other times you forget about that.
Instead of getting the out of here, as she should, this girl somehow decides she needs to kill this henchman first, probably for added movie tension.
Or probably so this guy doesn't keep coming after them.
Given what we're about to see in terms of planning ahead, it's some bullshit to the nth degree that Ethan's plan involved stopping here to get shot at, only to jump through the glass the bullet that should have killed him shattered.
Really? You think this was part of Ethan's plan? I'm positive he would have jumped through the glass even if Lane didn't shoot him. And how does shooting him affect Lane falling into the glass box? Like, what?
Didn't Lane want to keep Ethan alive because of that bullshit with memorizing the bank accounts? Why does he want to kill him now?
He doesn't. He's trying to incapacitate him so he can stop him from running. Notice how when he sees Ethan lying on the ground in this hole, he doesn't shoot him?
This entire plan is based on the wishes of Stardust fairies, on the eyelashes of leprechauns, that Lane will be a horrible shot, and won't simply kill Ethan when he sees him in plain view through this hole in the floor.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe how dumb this guy is sometimes. Ethan knows that Lane doesn't want to kill him, just knock him out. He wouldn't shoot him here because Ethan supposedly has the information that he wants.
This is the most deservingest of being caughtest bad guy ever. Why would you jump down that hole?
Why wouldn't he? For definitely not the last time, the characters in this franchise underestimate Ethan.
Ethan, we gotta go.
Well, there's still time for hugging, so...
Oh, trust me. I'd hug her right then and there, knowing she doesn't last long in this series and dies a super lame death.
Ethan, that's not who we are.
Maybe we need to reconsider that.
Ethan, take Julia to be your lawful wedded wife.
If someone's trying to pull an Inception on Ethan Hunt, then they picked the absolute wrong guy to play the minister.
I'm glad you didn't criticize the logos this time, but I still have to send you for an arbitrary movie reference.
Erase her identity, force her into hiding.
Wow, and it was all a dream cliche to open the film.
You should have killed me, Ethan.
Since when do movie characters nightmare dream the movie's actual plot? I mean, that evil dude does come back and is behind a nuke plot. So can Ethan's subconscious see the future or what?
Or it's probably the fact that Lane was a challenge for Ethan and he still misses Julia. And since when do dreams have the actual plot in them? Apparently, Jeremy has never seen The Wizard of Oz.
Fate whispers to the warrior, a storm is coming.
Holy a storm is coming even in the middle of a series of past phrases is still a goddamn storm is coming cliche.
Man, movies can't win with you, can they? This line is said in the middle of a passphrase, meaning it's not something the characters are saying as something ominous, and it's still sinful?
Jesus, I hope they didn't use a rare edition just so they could get a message to Ethan. Couldn't they have used The Art of the Deal instead?
Pointing things out on the screen.
Now, all because of Gary, all IMF agents need to verify their identities by pricking their finger into a DNA reader. F***ing Gary.
Listen, I don't like having my finger pricked either, but if it could potentially save the world, You should put your own feelings aside. That is why you're not a secret agent.
This entire message is for Ethan Hunt alone, and yet the IMF had to have employed at least a dozen people to even make this detailed digital presentation with maps and HD video. And my point is, at what point does it become cheaper, easier, and less dangerous to just brief this motherfucker in person and skip all the theatrics that are almost certainly only for the benefit of the viewing audience anyway?
Wouldn't it take more effort to figure out a meeting place and get on a plane to talk to him when you could just deliver it through mail? Do you not want to save the world as quickly as possible?
Known only by the codename John Lark.
AKA John MacGuffin.
Oh no, this movie has a MacGuffin. You know, literally all the Mission Impossible movies have one, right? Why is this a problem now, in the 6th movie?
This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
But what if I want to rewind it? What if I miss something? That was a lot of information packed into 2 minutes. What is smallpox?
I feel tired of saying this in every video, but this is Ethan freaking Hunt. This man has proven multiple times in this franchise that he pays attention to everything he can. He's been able to predict if an ally is actually working against him. Stuff like that. He doesn't need to hear this again. He has it all already.
Vaping.
Dude, none of these are actually something wrong with the movie. What are you even doing here? This video did not need to be 15 minutes long.
He's late.
For Christ's sake, can't these assholes be on time for once? You know, because being late rarely ever matters one whit in movie world.
Other than making them anxious and giving us this comedic scene where Benji is worried.
It's entirely possible to be relaxed and extremely uneasy at the same time.
For some reason, CinemaSins just adds us in here with no explanation. I have no idea what was wrong with this line, and my only guess is that this was meant to pad the runtime and sin count.
Ethan was told that a person by the code name of John Lark had hired the Apostles, who were in contact with elements of the Eastern European underworld that stole the plutonium. So how did they get this meeting set up with so little information? I know Ethan is a living, breathing Rolodex with the names of bad guys and their associates in his head and could get some promising leads to set up such a meet.
No. Stop right there. You literally answered your own question. Let's move on.
No lie, 2 weeks after filming this movie, the plutonium testing app was removed from the iTunes store under mysterious circumstances.
What even is the joke here? And it looks more like an android to me.
Don't you do it, Ethan! Not for me!
Whenever a movie character tells another one not to do a thing, usually as a noble attempt at sacrifice, 99% of the time the main character still does that thing they were warned not to do by the would-be sacrificer. And it's kind of annoying.
Well, that's kind of the main theme in this movie. Ethan is not willing to sacrifice anyone for the greater good, while the bad guy, Walker, is perfectly fine with that. At least in this case, this kind of setup serves the story.
Well, if he reads Lark's manifesto, I'll give you the passcode.
We're going to find out in a minute that Benji is posing as Wolf Blitzer to read literal fake news, so that this Nils guy will give them the passcode to a cell phone. And I'm just wondering, how the can these guys not get into a cell phone? Given the technology we've routinely seen the IMF use, how hard is that to hack?
I mean, a passcode is there for a reason. But this is also pretty ironic coming from you, the guy who's been questioning IMF technology a bunch of times. I don't get it. Sometimes you accept that it can do anything, and sometimes you think it's ridiculous. What's with that?
Why do all the Mission Impossible movies insist on spoiling themselves during the opening credits? I can objectively say this is the worst thing about the Mission Impossible movies. Well, besides the entire second movie.
Why do you think simply showing a bunch of random action scenes out of context is spoiling the movie? There are a ton of twists in this particular one, and the credits don't spoil any of it. And no, the worst thing about these movies is the amount of characters that appear in one movie and then disappear in the next. Remember Theodore Brassel?
This woman. Alana Mitsopoulos.
Alana Mitsopoulos? That sounds like a Bond name that forgot to include any sexual innuendo. Also, that's Lady Gaga. Boom, done. Solved it for you. Let's go get a taco.
One sin for comparing these movies to James Bond again, and for a really lame joke. Like, I know these videos are meant to be comedic, but they're not that funny.
No one comes between you and that plutonium. Not Hunt, not his team, not anyone.
I love Angela Bassett, but this seems to be her role in almost every movie. Come in, say something terse, then leave the picture until she's needed again. Question, why can't she go on this mission? I like Henry Cavill and all, but I want to see Angela Bassett kick some ass.
So I haven't seen many movies with Angela Bassett, but is she an action star? I mean, people liked her in Wakanda Forever because of her good acting, not because she did anything cool.
I assume his identity. Make contact with the widow. She takes us to the package.
The plan in these movies is always the same. And just like every other time, his stated plan here will go awry, and they'll have to improvise. Somebody should make software that acts as a Mission Impossible screenplay starter kit.
Ironic, coming from the guy who repeats things all the time.
I know you don't want me on this detail.
This is the mustache that single-handedly ruined Justice League.
I like the joke, but the mustache was the least of Justice League's problems. The fact that it made the whole story feel so meaningless and empty is something I will never forgive Joss Whedon and Warner Brothers for.
God damn it, Christopher McQuarrie. This is the f***ing right here. I'm removing 3 sins for this camera and stunt work. All of you are madmen. All of you.
Have to agree with you here. This scene is amazing.
The f***ing August wasn't just passed out on the Halo jump. Lightning struck super close and maybe hit him, forced them apart, and he remained unconscious through the entire drop. But now he's light as a feather and right as f***ing rain. I know he's a super agent and but he ain't an alien from Krypton.
This literally implies that he wasn't unconscious the entire drop, and his parachute went out earlier than Ethan. Why is it unbelievable that he woke up?
Raves this big. Also raves.
Pointing things out on the screen.
Ethan is a man aware of every single detail going on in a room at any given time. The fact that he missed this blocking asshole is some bull.
Oh, so you know that Ethan pays attention? And yet asked if he needed to hear that self-destruct message again in case he misses something? There are so many flip-flops in this video. It's insane.
He had a date with the widow. You look nothing like him. Now, we have to hope they never met.
How many Mission Impossible movies rely on the bad guy not ever meeting the person they're doing business with? Like all of them? At least half, right?
The only other Mission Impossible movie that has done this is Ghost Protocol. So this is only the second time this specific scenario has happened. Also, CinemaSins didn't remove a sin for Henry Cavill's arm reloading. There's a reason that was my outro in my last Mission Impossible video.
Hope is not a strategy,
said my college girlfriend after I inhaled the oysters and absinthe.
Missed opportunity for a Superman joke here. You know, because a symbol literally means hope. That actually would have been funny.
How does McQuarrie make a human Henry Cavill character look tougher and more badass than a Superman Cavill character ever has? I'm gonna add another sin for Justice League, because sometimes good movies need to make sacrifices for the bad ones.
Nah, this is another case of you padding the sin count here, because you realize this movie is really good. It doesn't have too many things actually bad about it.
We paid a great deal of money for this information.
Looks like the White Widow had to change into prison break planning couture for this meeting.
Do you see what time it is outside? That's her nightgown.
What happens after the diversion?
You want your plutonium?
This is the price.
This is an extremely odd trade-off. It's not like John Lark being impersonated by Ethan here needed to do anything. He didn't set up this prison break. He's just along for the ride. The people they have are more than enough to pull this off. Kind of surprised Ethan doesn't ask, why do you even need me? Or at least ask himself what he's really offering in this deal, which is practically nothing. It's Mission Impossible ride-along.
But if he doesn't help, he doesn't get the plutonium. And Mitsopoulos has heard of John Lark's reputation of killing people, so she thinks he can still help.
How many times has Hunt's government betrayed him, disavowed him, cast him aside?
Pretty much once per movie. So 6? 5, I guess, until it happens later in this movie, which will make it 6.
That didn't happen in the second movie, so no, it's 5.
He's handing her the phone he says they pulled off the dead body in the bathroom, suggesting it will have proof that Ethan Hunt is the real John Lark. But you guys are saying Lark is a master spy, the puppet master of other master spies. He's always been way ahead of you. You don't even know what his face looks like, but you think he hired this other dude to be a Lark decoy and that other guy used his fucking cell phone for that conversation? This is a world where important messages self-destruct, goddammit!
Except Sloane doesn't know Ethan like we do. Maybe he is someone who'd do this kind of thing. And Walker is clearly someone she trusts, so why would she be suspicious?
Man, skinny Liam Neeson doesn't look so tough in that straitjacket and leg irons, and being so skinny.
Right.
If you look up the word omniscient in the dictionary, it's a picture of Ilsa.
Remember when you answered your own question for how Ethan was able to set up that meeting? Yeah, apply that same logic to Ilsa. She works for MI6. She has her own way of figuring out these things.
Look, I'm not saying you stop, but if you're transporting the most notorious criminal in the world in a convoy and a double trailer truck crashes in your main route's path, right as you show up there, that is an attack. You are under attack. Do not simply change routes and carry on. This sin goes for the Dark Knight as well.
Why would these cops assume that this is an attack? Car accidents happen all the time in real life, so they would just guess it's another one. And what exactly are you asking them to do? You didn't suggest an alternative, so this sin doesn't carry any weight.
Luckily for Ethan's intervention plan, the doors of this van open up after a couple collisions and dump every single bad guy onto the street for the cops to come by and arrest them.
Flip-flopping again over how smart you think Ethan is. These cops were literally driving after him because he pushed a prison car with Lane inside the river. And these goons weren't expecting to be moved around like this, so yeah, they'd fall out like this.
Whoa, Tom Cruise on a motorcycle cliche and vehicle won't start cliche in one? Considering the narrow tunnel he's stuck in, I'm gonna call this clicheception.
Still don't like you sending Tom Cruise on a motorcycle. However, the bigger sin here is misusing the word inception again. Like, don't you think that word means a thing within a thing? How is this that in any way?
This movie is just giving all the fingers to the Bourne movies, and I'm okay with it.
Sinning something you like.
Yes, Ethan is driving against the grain of infamous Arc de Triomphe traffic, but the sin is this f***ing roundabout. This is like the city planners said, God will show the drivers the way, and they built it based on that.
But didn't you just admit this is real? So why is Fallout receiving a sin here? And besides, without this, we wouldn't have one of the best John Wick fight scenes ever.
Okay, he called for special extraction, but no way he or they could have known he'd end up here, and yet everyone did. He got knocked off his motorcycle in a crash that should have killed him, but movie makes it seem like that was on purpose so he could disappear right here in this spot.
You almost had a point, but you lost me when you said this crash should have killed him. You know Tom Cruise does all his own stunts, right? This crash was real, and Tom is perfectly fine. This is not as deadly as you think it is.
Mission Impossible, The French Connection.
Arbitrary movie reference.
Man, it's kind of amazing Paris isn't on lockdown after the daring attempt to break Solomon Lane from his prison transport. Paris needs to hire a Tommy Lee Jones. It's almost like they forgot about the escape.
Wouldn't that have taken a little long to do? And they don't know where Ethan or Lane are, so they're safe right now.
The only thing impossible in these movies is shooting the tires, I guess. I mean, she's aiming for Solomon Lane, but her perfect kill shot didn't go through the glass earlier, so why take the chance here? Make sure they can't drive first, then kill him.
What? Shooting the tires is extremely difficult, and she's standing right in front of the car where they're out of her range, and she wants to kill Lane specifically, so why would she even try to shoot them?
The Syndicate was a pack of murdering cowards.
The Syndicate was civilization's last hope.
So, the League of Shadows?
What's with all the DC references in this video?
It's complicated.
Roll credits. Wait, wrong Alec Baldwin movie.
Dude, there was literally a roll credits moment in the previous scene, and you somehow missed it.
The fallout of all your good intentions.
You needed him to break Lane out because you have to kill Lane.
So the CIA wanted Lark to break Lane out because they wanted Lark to lead them to the Apostles and Plutonium. Ilsa wanted Lark to break Lane out because she wanted to kill Lane. Considering the sheer amount of omniscience Ilsa displays in this movie, knowing about the prison break is not an issue. What is an issue is considering the sheer amount of omniscience, she and MI6 couldn't come up with a better plan to kill Lane.
I mean, what else could she have done? Lane was under police custody, and Ethan was working on breaking him out. She would have to find where he was, and the only real opportunity she'd have is when he's out in the open or in the car.
Who's making you do this? MI6.
Yes, of course MI6 is making her do this. That's the name of the movie, right?
I was really hoping you wouldn't make that joke because of how obvious it was.
When the Apostles realize that you're playing games, you'll lose the plutonium again.
That's literally a Bible verse. I think it's John Lark 3:16.
I hate how half this video is just me rolling my eyes at these stupid jokes.
August has been looking at this monitor the whole time, so how the f does he end up getting fooled? There's no double mask thing going on where Solomon's been Benji and Benji's been Solomon the whole time, and then they put on another mask of their real face, so they did literal magic here to fool August in this scene, and the movie never quite explains how it happens.
There is literally no evidence to suggest that Walker was looking at this monitor the whole time. You just made that up. We only see him looking at it after Benji and Lane swapped places.
I thought we had a deal.
We did, and now we don't.
This movie has entirely too many double crosses, twists, and turns. John Lark, a fake name, August Walker, who works for the CIA and is John Lark, Solomon Lane, the Apostles, the CIA, the IMF, the White Widow, who is a broker between the bad guys, but who is also working for the CIA, and who has a criminal brother with a Marvel villain's name, Ilsa Faust, and her motives. Two different organizations wanted Lane out of prison for different reasons, the Eastern Europeans who stole the plutonium in the first place. It is a lot to take in.
Half of those things don't sound like twists.
On top of the double cross confusion, now we have an action scene that is shot in the dark, only lit by flashlights, and while it's not hyper-edited or shot with an unhealthy dose of shaky cam, it can be hard to tell where everyone is, who's shooting, and why we care.
Nah, I'm pretty sure that's just a you problem.
Sorry, Alec. Desk boss IMF guy doesn't last 2 seconds against CIA covert assassin guy.
I agree, because Walker literally pulls a knife out extremely fast and kills him, and you literally cut off the scene before that happened.
More insane camera and stunt work. You know what? Give this movie another 5 sins off.
I also agree that this deserves sins off, but I'm also confused, because I'd say Mission Impossible 3 did the same thing, and you didn't remove any sins there, so what's the difference? But you know what? I'll be nice and not add or remove a sin.
And she would wonder who's watching the world while Ethan is watching me. Deep down, they both knew that something truly terrible was going to happen, all because they were together.
The F***ing hubris on those two, though. Ethan's a fantastic spy, but he's not Batman. He's not stopping all the bad things in the world while spying. Only some of them, because he's one man. Christ, so many better ways to explain their parting of ways.
How did you come to that conclusion? Luther is simply saying that if there's a problem that happens and it doesn't get solved, Ethan could feel guilty about it. This is the issue with trying to be a spy and a husband. You have to commit to one or the other. This is something that Julia helps Ethan accept at the end when she tells him she can sleep peacefully knowing he's out there saving the world.
What's his last position?
About 30 miles northeast.
And that's where he wants us to go.
Solomon Lane has a raging murder boner with the manifesto tagline, "The greater the suffering, the greater the peace." Yet his revenge boner is much more important, allowing Ethan to know where the attack is going to take place. Even if it is 99% unlikely Ethan and his team can find the bombs and defuse them, isn't the fact that he failed to stop them and that his ex-wife is going to die enough?
Same idea from the first Mission Impossible video where you questioned Krieger wanting revenge on Ethan by trying to kill him with the helicopter blades. Revenge is purely emotional and not something you can think clearly on, and Lane blathers on over and over about how he thinks this victory is inevitable, so he's underestimating Ethan again. And you also said boner twice.
Wait, just so I've got this clear. Our only chance to safely defuse both bombs is to let the countdown start.
Ilsa would be pretty f***ing awesome at CinemaSins.
So you're saying Ilsa has a point that this mission sounds ridiculous? Yeah, that does sound like CinemaSins.
Ah, sudden West Bentley.
Pointing actors out on the screen.
Rebecca Ferguson chasing someone down at a cabin? This reminds me way too much of The Snowman.
Arbitrary movie reference.
Oh god, he tied her up, all because he wants her to witness this or something? I really want to like Solomon Lane, but his need for people to know he got his revenge is making it very difficult. And like this is a situation a trained government agent can't get out of. Jesus.
That's part of his characterization, that he's overconfident the bombs will kill her anyway.
The original script for this Sin video had 15 he survives this sins in a row here during the film's climax.
Would have been nice if he at least showed those scenes.
Why won't you just die?
This bad guy cliche is so disappointing in a great action movie, I'm considering adding multiple sins. But I can't be mad at you, Mission Impossible 6. I just can't. Still, one sin.
What's cliche about this? Walker simply asking why he doesn't die? Is that a cliche?
I asked a mathematician friend to calculate the odds that Hunt...
No. Sinning this scene? Come on, this deserved another sin off.
He's got 16 seconds, folks. 16 seconds to free solo the rest of this mountain and pull the firing key. I know that the movie wants to make it suspenseful, but I'd rather see him actually do it than cut away and pretend like he's not gonna do it.
You just said it. It's for suspense. It's much more exciting to think that he might not be able to do it, making it even more relieving when he actually does stop the bomb. That's how action scenes in movies are supposed to be done. Why don't you understand this channel that has the word cinema in the name?
I know he's exhausted and almost died, like a dozen times in the last 10 minutes, but don't lie so close to the edge, you idiot!
And yelling at the screen to round it all out. Please don't review movies ever again.
His fate is written. Shall we write yours too?
If anything happens to them, there's no place that I won't go to kill you. That is written.
With your latitude and longitude. You said the Bering Sea. That was enough. There's not a single person in the theater that's like, oh, that part of the Bering Sea. Now I'm truly intrigued.
I get what you're saying, but it's still nice to know the coordinates. Okay, I don't have a rebuttal to this. It'll make more sense later.
The most fearsome killing machine ever devised by man. Ooh, are we about to watch Oppenheimer by mistake? Fine by me. I'd rather sit through 3 hours of a complete movie than 2.5 hours of an unfinished one.
While I agree Oppenheimer was way better than this, considering this movie is set decades after that one, I have a feeling this weapon is even worse.
Spinning camera on a big red ball. Spinning camera inside big red ball. Flashing red lights. AI excitement.
Pointing things out on the screen.
He's there.
Turning with us again.
He can see us.
It may not be fair, but anytime you have a game of cat and mouse between a top secret Russian stealth sub and an American sub, you're going to get a sin for not being the Hunt for Red October. One ding only, please.
Arbitrary movie reference. That was early.
Hi, Captain. Making Troop 2 ready in all respects.
Weird, that's the same thing my college girlfriend used to say every naval roleplay night.
And a college girlfriend joke. We're only 5 sins in, and already I'm questioning why this video needed to be 24 minutes long.
This weird-ass chess match where 5 moves in, neither player has attempted to control the middle of the board with a pawn.
Pointing things out on the screen again. Can you please give me something better to respond to?
He was never there. We've been chasing a phantom.
Right, because in AI was like, I have control over this entire vessel in any way I want, but you know what feels fun? A game of ghost chicken.
Finally. You completely missed the point of this scene. The entity was tricking this sub into firing missiles at a submarine that isn't even there, so it can then redirect the missiles back, destroying the Sevastopol. I'd say that's pretty clever, because if it shot the missiles itself, the crew would become suspicious immediately.
I am computer AI. I will make spooky noises and scary eyeball graphics while no one is even in here to see them. You cannot stop me from my pointless grandstanding.
And back to weird nitpicking. This is just how the entity works. What's the problem?
Not providing me latitude and longitude, so I know where exactly in Amsterdam this is.
Alright, here is why I included that first sin. Jeremy earlier criticized the movie for giving us the longitude and latitudes, and now he's making fun of the movie for not doing that. I'd be okay with this joke if he didn't then add a sin right here. This is the problem with CinemaSins, where they treat real critiques and jokes the same, and don't do a good job distinguishing the two.
You need to ask me the security question first.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. What is the oath?
Trying to offset Tom Cruise's intensity with an adorable Brit as if you didn't already have a Benji serving that purpose.
Or maybe the movie is showing a new IMF agent delivering this message, which sets up Ethan telling him he made the right choice, which becomes a main theme of this movie.
30 years ago, you were offered the choice. Join the IMF or spend your life in prison.
We're 7 movies deep and now you want to give us Ethan Hunt origins?
That's the theme I was just talking about. This sets up Grace's choice at the end to join the IMF, so it makes sense for them to now explain why Ethan joined in the first place. There was no reason to bring this up in any of the previous movies.
Just as you will never forget the death that brought you to us all those years ago.
Yet another sequel jumpstarts the plot by showing us an event from the protagonist's past that didn't exist until this movie invented it. You have 6 movies of content spanning 27 years, so why not pull from some of that shit?
How does this flashback kickstart the plot? All it does is tell us that Ethan knows who Gabriel is.
The stakes of this mission are higher than ever.
Of course they are. Higher than that time a Scotsman with a virus was going to wipe out all the world, or that time those bad guys got a hold of those nukes, or that time Discount Spectre also got a hold of some nukes.
Yeah, it is kind of comical how these movies try to top the previous one. But in this case, I'd say they're even higher, since the main villain is artificial intelligence. The idea that a cold, calculating machine can set off nukes is a scary thought. I mean, have you seen Terminator?
What should concern you is the involvement of your friend, Ilsa Faust.
Wait the f*** on a minute. Fallout had that subplot about getting Ilsa out of trouble and away from the spy game, and I'm pretty sure Rogue Nation did something similar too. And now she's back in the mix? There better be a good reason for bringing her back again, and it had better not be to just kill her off for a cheap emotional punch.
Ilsa is a part of MI6, and she's one of the most interesting characters in this series in my opinion. And while I agree her death in this movie sucks, she does at least serve a purpose in this story, getting one half of the key and giving it to Ethan, which actually kickstarts the plot.
Continuing to use cassette tapes that could be listened to by anyone who understands how to push the play button instead of encrypted digital audio files.
You know this was delivered by an IMF agent, right? I'd assume they'd be trained to keep it under their care at all costs before giving it to the next agent. And you even showed they went through a process of making sure they were on the same team.
Some quick movie trivia for you. Tom Cruise spent 5 weeks training on how to use actual binoculars just to get this scene right.
Did anyone find this joke funny?
Becoming a pirate just because you can't close your left eye.
Ilsa is in the middle of the desert during a huge sandstorm. Of course she'd cover one of her eyes to prevent sand from getting in.
Sending a very clear message.
I shall return.
The amount of work this county production of Tennessee Williams' Exposition Descending is doing is insane. It's not only laying out yards of forced factual groundwork, it's then making huge leap assumptions about the motives and next steps of this completely new and unknown entity. The scene is making an ass out of you, me, and itself.
And we all know if this scene wasn't here, you'd be complaining that you don't know what the entity is or why we should be afraid of it.
But servers require humans to maintain them.
And humans are the weakest link in any security chain.
Movie dismisses the air gap solution because humans have to maintain it, and instead goes with the type every secret onto paper plan, as if the beings doing the typing, collecting, archiving, and overseeing aren't Homo sapien in nature. This whole scene is the dumbest expositional force feeding to ever dumb itself down an audience's throat.
Again, this is ironic. You're the same person who's dumbed down a lot of words, from cliche to Inception to Deus Ex Machina.
An enemy that is everywhere and nowhere.
I feel like this guy was cast exclusively because he kind of looks like he'd make a good Terminator.
Why did you play this guy's line? It had nothing to do with this arbitrary movie reference.
You don't want to kill it, sir. You want to control it. And how do we do that, Mr. Kittredge?
Sudden 1996 Mission Impossible callbacks. While I don't object on the whole, it is rather striking that Kittredge is the only minion in this briefing that actually gets a name check, as if he's the only one the scriptwriters cared about.
Well, he's the only one who's offering a solution for how to beat the entity, so that's why he addressed him by name.
Well, we know that a buyer is passing somewhere through the Middle East sometime in the next 72 hours.
Do you know how big the Middle East is? F***ing big is how big. Do you know how long 72 hours is in Spy World? I don't know, but I bet it's f***ing long. It's almost impressive to have actionable intelligence specific enough to be sinful, but vague enough to be useless.
Does it have to be specific? I feel like this works just fine enough.
So let me get this straight. When there's a mission none of you can handle, you just leave word for a nameless man and hope he gets the job done.
David Luckner would be excellent at CinemaSins.
This guy sort of leaves out the fact that these nameless men are specifically trained for this and have even succeeded multiple times, considering this is the 7th movie. So yeah, I'd say he'd be perfect at CinemaSins.
Should he choose to accept it?
What the hell kind of outfit gets to choose what orders to accept?
This scene has rapidly become an everything wrong with the IMF in Cary Elwes minutes or less.
Except you cut out the part of the scene that explains the whole choose to accept thing.
What the hell kind of outfit gets to choose what orders to accept?
The IMF was expressly created to ensure there would be no unintended consequences. If they cannot ensure a mission's ultimate outcome, they're authorized to decline.
This is only a surprise to the movie illiterate watchers who didn't wonder why the movie cut to 17 different close-ups of this random person who didn't speak at all during the scene.
Yeah, but it's still pretty sick to watch.
Also, there are exactly 22 seconds between the green bombs of immediate impact going off and Ethan taking out his breathing apparatus. You're telling me that no one in that room could hold their breath for 22 fucking seconds?
It's almost like they didn't know this gas was gonna go off, so wouldn't have been able to hold their breath in time.
Whatever the completed key unlocks.
We'll just have to wait a few years, because why have just one movie when you can do less editing work and just make it 2?
You say this as if this is a question that will be answered in the next movie. But the problem is, this movie gives us the answer. It is revealed that it unlocks the Sevastopol, which we saw at the beginning of the movie. The only answer we don't have yet is how Ethan and his friends are gonna find the Sevastopol.
Stay out of my way. I can't do that.
What? Ethan Hunt is going rogue and is about to be disavowed by the people he works for? Didn't see that coming.
Oh no, the movie is repeating a plot point, says the guy who calls everything a cliche without knowing what that word means.
Also, one way to keep Kittredge out of your way is to not have this conversation with him and let him know you have the key half. What actionable intel did Ethan actually gain during this conversation?
I'm guessing he hoped to get the entire IMF to help, since the stakes are higher than ever, as Kittredge himself says. He didn't expect them to be all, nah, we can control it.
So just how do you plan on getting out of here? Of course.
Magical masks that just self-apply in seconds that would take makeup artists hours to accomplish. Yes, we're still sending these masks. It's our mission, and we continue to choose to accept it.
I've seen all your previous Mission Impossible videos, and I don't remember you criticizing these masks all that often. And besides, they've always been unrealistic. Just go with it.
Spoiling your own movie and your own opening credits.
Still sending these credits, are you? Shouldn't TV shows that supposedly spoil plot points in their opening titles get a sin too?
Also waiting 30 minutes to roll them.
Oh no, a movie did something unique. What rule dictates when credits should play in a movie?
It's time. Hollywood has fallen in love with multi-part films, and it always makes the first movie worse. I'm throwing 5 sins on any and every movie that has a part 1 from here until I forget to do so. Even if you decide someday to try to hide your sin by dropping the part 1 from the title, we know half a movie when we see it, and we will continue to act accordingly.
I'm surprised this is the first time you're doing this. I mean, Harry Potter did that way back in 2010 with the final book. Heck, more recently, Marvel did this with Infinity War and Endgame, and Sony did it with Spider-Verse, and no one seems to be upset about those. And you also split your Star Wars prequel videos into 2 parts, so I don't think you're one to talk.
Truth-eating digital parasite infesting all of cyberspace.
X.
Does anyone call Twitter X? Because I sure don't.
Meaning this very conversation is technically an act of treason.
Nope. Technically, an act of treason has to be an actual act. In fact, the only reason the Constitution even mentions treason is so that it can limit it to people who actively levy war against America or give aid and comfort to an enemy of the U.S.
Yeah, but this conversation is setting up the acts that they are about to commit.
So, this is the guy that shot Hunt's lady friend back in the day. Now, I initially assumed the tape mentioned the shooting because the IMF knew that Gabriel was involved, but that was not the case at all. Gabriel had nothing to do with that initial mission to capture Ilsa. It's just a big old sack of coincidence that this guy shows up on this adventure just days after Tape Guy mentioned him.
Okay, and coincidences happen all the time in real life. I'm just saying.
Packing twice as many guns as you need for the job. How many pairs of shoes do you really need, Susan?
Did you not hear that guy say they need to capture Ethan at all costs? Wait, yes you did. You literally said that scene.
His agenda represents a threat to our national interest, and he must be neutralized at all costs.
When you say at all costs, do you really mean that?
So how did you immediately forget about that?
How did you do that? No one is safe from Phineas Freak.
And that non-answer is all the explanation we will ever get about that.
See? You earlier criticized the movie for giving you too much exposition, and now you're mad the movie isn't giving you enough of it.
What if somebody is trying to smuggle a bomb onto that plane?
And what if that's what the entity wants us to think? To keep Ethan off that plane?
In 2 sentences, the movie self-owns by showing how nothing in this entire part 1 can actually be understood or truly matter to the audience.
You sure about that? Because judging by the audience scores, people seem to understand this movie just fine.
Whoa. Whoever she is, she's no spy.
Not understanding that people contain multitudes.
How is that related to what Luther was talking about?
Hi.
Hello.
Oh, just already.
I'll scream.
Please do.
Oh, just already.
Yelling at the screen.
And why was this drive in your pocket?
Ethan pickpockets back the key and the drive without her knowing and then decides to just let her know through some quick magical callbacks? But why? How does this help him? Isn't he skilled enough to put them back on the mark himself or figure out a cover story?
He's literally offering her money by explaining what the keys are worth, and she's more skilled at pickpocketing than him.
So, what do I call you?
How about Grace?
The key is a crucifix. You're named Grace. At least the person helping the entity isn't named after an angel. That might be a bit too on the nose.
What does her name being Grace have anything to do with that? I get you're pointing out the on-the-nose symbolism, but I don't see how Grace fits in there.
Also, it appears to be nuclear.
How big?
I mean, does it matter how big? If this is a baby nuke, would the outcome be any different? Is Luther going to say, don't worry, Benji, if it's small, we'll just let it explode and kill a bunch of people and make a good chunk of Abu Dhabi uninhabitable for the next century or dozen? No biggie.
How is this a real question? He's obviously wondering how big of an explosion it would cause. I'd be curious about that too.
I haven't got any tools.
Then find some.
Well, where am I going to find...
Did he just grab a random passenger bag and whip it open to search for bomb disarming tools? Unless you're planning to use a toothbrush, a belt buckle, or a vibrator for this job, I'm thinking that's quite an ask.
Maybe you should have checked what Benji used. I did, and he used a fingernail clipper. I don't think airport security would mind that.
What's always approaching, but never arrives.
Wait. I know this one.
The clock is ticking, Luther.
Riddles aren't my thing, Benji. What more can I say?
You just said you knew this one, you backpedaling.
When he said he knew it, he meant he'd heard it before. He just had to try and recall what the answer was. I've done that plenty of times.
I've got no more questions and there's one more wheel. How am I supposed to give answers if I've got no questions? I've got 45 seconds!
Could he not just spin the f***ing dial? He said there were 14 letters on each ring and he's got 45 seconds to go. That's like 3 seconds for each ring. Start spinning, Benji!
But if he gets it wrong, what if the bomb explodes? He also doesn't know what the letters spell out until he looks underneath it and notices it spells good luck.
Tom Cruise finds an excuse to sprint in a movie cliche.
And it never gets old. Unlike these videos.
But it has allowed us to keep tabs on this woman.
Figuring out how to do this coordinated analog PowerPoint presentation between these cathode ray TVs in a totally computer-free environment is exactly why you can't trust the government to spend your tax money wisely.
Wouldn't that be a sin for the government and not the movie?
Guatemala, extortion in Mumbai. But this is my favorite, resist and arrest in Rio.
I need an entire TED Talk and maybe even a supplemental masterclass on why this man finds resisting arrest in Rio to be his favorite.
Another case of you asking for information that is unimportant to the plot of this movie. I mean, it's almost 3 hours long, for Pete's sake.
Characters we barely know are being watched by another character we've barely seen at all to intersect with a third character we just met who's being followed by a villain that hasn't said a single word in a movie that's been going for almost an hour with hardly any plot advancement. Let's go!
Hardly any plot advancement? You know, if you don't count Ilsa grabbing one half of the key, then giving it to Ethan, then Grace stealing it, and also introducing both Gabriel and the entity.
Your friends from the airport. Saw them in the hallway a few minutes ago.
You could have said something sooner.
Well, they were chasing you, not me.
Yes, but he is your ticket out of here. If he gets snatched before you leave, you're f***ed. And if you don't care about him being your escape route, why give over all the information about why you were hired?
Probably because Ethan told her he'd know if she's lying, and since she hoped he'd get arrested, the shared information wouldn't matter anyway, since he'd supposedly be in prison.
Only in Italy could the word for pervert sound so adorable. F***ing Italy.
Again, shouldn't that be a sin for Italy and not the movie?
And double, of course, there's a motorcycle for Hunt because Tom Cruise loves motorcycles.
And sending Tom Cruise on a motorcycle cliche.
Hunt, listen to me. Listen to me. Let her go and put him on.
Hunt is pretty well cornered here, but fear not, there's a Deus Ex Mantissima right around the corner.
How? Paris is working for Gabriel and wants to find a key that Grace gave away. So if anything, this is adding further problems for Ethan to solve. It ain't a Deus Ex Machina. This is almost as bad as when you call the asteroid being sucked into the black hole in Treasure Planet that.
I'm done. I'm not doing this.
People are chasing us.
I mean, you'd think so, wouldn't you? But they always seem to be nowhere to be seen when you guys need to stop for a bit of talkie-talkie.
This sin would make a whole lot more sense if they weren't hiding in the middle of an alleyway.
What are we doing?
Finding us a new car.
Wait, were safe house, safe boat, and safe car the only options? What if I needed a safe plane, a safe bank, or some safe sex?
The sex thing was obviously a joke, but why would they need a bank? They're secret agents, and I have a feeling a plane would be hard to come by.
Hey, look, I'm sorry. This is...
It's okay.
No, this car, the way they...
It's okay.
See, it's funny because the confident man is having performance issues in front of the pretty lady.
You're right. That's exactly why this is hilarious. Wait, that's a sin?
2023 movie using the Spanish Steps as a place to do crazy automobile stunts cliche. Okay, so it was just the two movies, but if your buddy in the category is Fast X, you're getting a sin.
I mean, even if this isn't the best Mission Impossible movie, we can at least agree it's leagues better than Fast X, right?
I've run this back several times, and they are clearly still handcuffed to each other when they crash on the tracks. So she had 3 seconds to get the paperclip, unlock her handcuff, and attach it to the steering wheel without looking and with a single hand, and all without one of the most observant humans in history noticing the cuff nettigans? Nope.
Grace has been established to be a master pickpocket, and we earlier saw her use a paperclip to get off handcuffs before this scene, so I can buy this. Not to mention, you're again criticizing Ethan for not being smart enough to see this, while also questioning how he was able to do insane things.
Hunt actually seems happy to see Ilsa instead of shouting, "Why aren't you staying dead? I have risked so much to keep you alive, goddammit."
Hey, at least she isn't out in the open where the IMF can see her, and she has information that she needs to share.
You don't know Gabriel. I do.
No, you knew who he was. The last time you saw Gabriel was close to, if not more than, 30 years ago. For all you know, he's turned over a new leaf and just really likes international travel.
Yeah, sure, but it was also explained to him that the entity specifically chose him to be its messenger, so I doubt he turned a new leaf.
No, you have to go. You have to go. Ethan.
This is the part of the movie where Ethan convinces everyone he has to do this alone, and they say, "No, Ethan, we love you. We can risk our lives if we want." And he'll say, "Man, I love you guys. Isn't friendship great? I hope I can live with myself when you all die."
That's actually not what happens. Luther, Benji, and Ilsa point out that maybe splitting up is exactly what the entity wants, and that they need to think about how to fight against it without emotion and more logically. And isn't it interesting that you're saying this over the characters explaining that, as if you're hiding what the movie is actually saying?
The entity knows who we are. Any move we make, it's probably considered it. Anything we do, we have to assume that it's counting on us to do it.
It's almost like having a supposed all-seeing, all-knowing force that we know nothing about as your antagonist sucks all the tension right out of the story, huh?
How? Doesn't this make it scarier, knowing that it can predict anyone's moves and that they need to think outside the box? I'd say that gives this movie tension.
Don't mind me. I'm just standing here thinking about my thoughts against the most cinematic backdrop possible.
Okay, whatever. But why did you write the words "at sunset" into subtitles, but then didn't actually say those words out loud?
It's my first time in Venice.
And it's my first time in this movie to skip.
Hey, this is one of the last moments with Ilsa before her lame death. You better take it in for as long as you can.
And you're Gabriel, I presume. I've heard so very little about you.
Same, lady. Same.
Yelling at the screen.
Should I know you?
Geez, Grace, they did a whole circle jerk of exposition about her like 5 minutes ago to avoid this confusion. Keep up!
This line was said because she realized that Alana hired her.
It's in the last place you would ever think to look.
Oh, f off. How does that immediately equate to Zola's pocket? Did Tom Cruise train to be psychic for this movie?
Or Ethan saw Zola searching her, he knows that she's a good pickpocket, and therefore put two and two together. This is again, you underestimating him, even though you literally called him smart earlier.
You could even say that this party is that interested party.
You could also say that this party thinks the party that is that party and bored this party.
Skip!
Parsing every possible cause and effect, every scenario, however implausible, into a very real map of a most probable next.
So this whole situation is some kind of mix between the Precogs and Minority Report, Skynet from Terminator, and Doctor Strange and Infinity War. Neat.
In the case of both Minority Report and Infinity War, the future predictors were working for the good guys, while in this movie, it's the literal villain. But I'm more confused with the Terminator reference. When did Skynet predict the future? Are you referring to them knowing that Sarah would give birth to John? They were already in the future long after that, so they weren't predicting the future. Did you even watch those movies?
Fine. The black and white costuming here is pretty cool. Gabriel is dressed in white with a black undershirt to indicate he thinks he's an angel, but is dark at his core. Ethan is in a black suit with a white shirt underneath because he feels lost in darkness, but his soul is pure. Alana is dressed in all white because her motives are clear, and Ilsa in all black because her fate is not. And Grace is in perfect balance of white and black to represent that she is the key to balancing the Force, or some shit. Now, can we please get back to an action scene for f***'s sake?
I was curious to see where you were going with this, and now I'm underwhelmed. You said all of that just to ask the movie to get to another action scene? Why didn't you just say that? Oh, right, the runtime. Almost forgot.
This is the second time in this movie that someone has used sleight of hand to show a valuable item to someone who didn't know they had it, and it was dumb both times.
I already explained the first time, but in this case, it was just to mess with him, dude.
Tom Cruise finds an excuse to sprint in a move. Wait, haven't we done this one already?
You've done this many times in this franchise, and I think it's still sinful that you think it's sinful to watch Tom Cruise running.
The entity is knocking out satellites faster than I can hack into them.
Luther's fleshy brain seems shocked that a computer is better at computing than he is.
I mean, this is the same guy that has done a ton of insane hacking in the previous movies. I don't blame him for being surprised.
Bringing knives to an AI fight.
What?
Presenting your weapons for observation instead of immediately using them.
It's almost like Grace underestimates Gabriel or something.
There it is. That decision to run away instead of kill her will ultimately change the game. And the eventual singularity happens, and we all wonder why love didn't save us from the AI apocalypse. Just remember, it's this movie's fault for putting that idea in your head in the first place.
I feel like that'd be stupid if people take movies that seriously. Oh, wait, I'm talking to the master of that craft.
Bullshit. Ilsa is a badass and doesn't deserve to hit the fridge this easily.
Yep, I was really hoping you'd send this scene. I don't hate this movie like some people do. I find it enjoyable enough, but I do agree this scene really brought my score down. Ilsa only dies to give Ethan motivation, and it's just so lame after their romance has been teased for 2 movies. I'm legitimately hoping she comes back in the next movie, though even I'll admit that seems unlikely.
It was her first time in Venice. Her first time in Venice. Stacking chairs like this.
This BS.
In one outcome, you die on that train. In another outcome, you kill Gabriel. In both cases, the entity wins.
Does it though? Your logic is based on Gabriel being the only way to find out what the key unlocks, and you have no idea if that's true. In fact, if that were true, wouldn't the entity just kill Gabriel itself and be done with it? I'm just saying, if I were Ethan, you'd have to do a lot more to pour cold water on my revenge boner than these giant assumptions and conjecture.
Why would the entity kill Gabriel? It needs him to get the key. You know, the MacGuffin of this movie, it knows that Ethan wants the key to deactivate it, so asking Gabriel to get it before him makes perfect sense. Also, Jeremy says boner.
I managed to make a Widow mask for Grace, but then it just shorted out in the middle of making yours.
The only error message it gave was cannot complete motorcycle stunt required for plot.exe to continue.
What's wrong with that? I personally love that this technology doesn't always work. That was one of the reasons Ghost Protocol was so good. And yeah, without it, we don't have the awesome motorcycle sequence.
You'll find another way to get me on that train. I just need a curve where it's going slow enough for me to jump on.
Well, thank goodness we acted that out, because my imagination is far too basic to have pictured that on its own.
Promise me you'll be on that train.
I will be there, no matter what.
And if it just so happens to require me to pull off an incredibly dangerous stunt that makes for great promo material, so be it.
Yelling at the screen ×2.
Self-drive activated.
You know, the first thing I'm going to do when the sentient AI goes rogue, not trust the self-driving car to not throw me off a mountain.
Then it's a good thing this car is offline, isn't it?
Please don't disturb me before the meeting.
I mean, that's just f***ing lucky, right? How was Grace supposed to switch places with Alana if she had decided to keep Zola at her side?
Do you seriously think Zola would be with her at all times? You think he's there when she goes to the bathroom?
How do we know hers isn't a counterfeit either right now? Who's going to check the precious alloys?
That's kind of what the later scene with Kittredge is for.
You're not Alana Mitsopoulos. Well, the Alana I remember was Yehide.
Oh, you false tension-mongering drama tease. Somehow Kittredge has a history with Alana, which could lead to Grace thinking she's been exposed when she hasn't. And even so, who the f*** would phrase it that way?
Somehow has history? I guess you forgot Alana is the daughter of Max, who Kittredge has a history with. Remember? You sinned the first movie a few years ago.
Well, she did a job for me.
The Grace we met went head-to-head with Ethan and kept her poise and cool the entire time. But now that the script needs some tension, she's fumbling her words. This is what's known in the business as plot-based character f***ery shit. Gotta know the lingo.
You know Grace isn't an IMF agent, right? This is literally her first time wearing a mask. Why do you expect her to be perfect at this immediately? Isn't that exactly what Rey Palpatine gets criticized for?
We were able to transmit an early copy of the AI to Russia's newest submarine.
I think I remember something about that from like 2 hours ago. Hard to tell. There's been a lot of meaningless action since then, but I'll do my best to keep up.
And you're the same guy who criticized Grace for supposedly not keeping up.
You wish to form an axis with the entity. Purge your government of old think and create a new superstate to rule the world.
Wait, America, we're the bad guys all along? And Carrie Elways is playing a character not entirely on the up and up? Who conceived of such a unique twist?
I doubt it was meant to be a twist.
Handing over the keys to the apocalypse when only 13% of the blockchain has been decrypted.
Why not? The decision's already been made, and after the phone finishes, it then gives Grace the option to either confirm or decline.
Power of boners, revenge and regular gives Ethan the strength to pull off this stunt.
Jeremy says boner.
You showed this so much in your promo material marketing and even this movie's opening credits that all this feels a little bit anticlimactic.
This movie is flawed, but you seriously decided to send this scene? This scene deserved at least 5 sins off.
I want to like Kittredge. I really do. But how can this dumbass think the key to stopping the most intelligent and deadly AI ever conceived is worthy of slipping into his jacket pocket? Not even his inside pocket.
He kinda doesn't know that Grace is posing as Alana right now. Just saying.
Storing your person killer next to your person maker.
Jeremy says boner for a 3rd time.
The hilarious bullshit that is Ethan X hunting into this exact car at this exact time. Yes, I said hilarious. I also said bullshit.
Judging by the X you put in there, it sounds like you're referring to this as a Deus Ex Machina, which it isn't, since you show the setup earlier.
Also help me if someone in the comments pipes up about that this was the way Entity planned it. I will first curse your username, and then remind you that such a thing would make it even more of a literal Deus Ex Machina, so shoosh!
How?
Well, it looks like it's fist fight on a moving train in a Mission Impossible movie o'clock.
Are you saying we've seen this kind of action in this franchise before? The only other time there was a train action scene was the first one, and I'm pretty sure Ethan and Jim weren't directly fighting each other since that train was going way faster than this one.
Did he just put his whole body weight plus centrifugal force onto a 6-inch blade stuck into the side of a train? I mean, there are plenty of cases where 6 inches is plenty to get the job done, but I don't think this is one of them.
Why is that?
Don't you do it!
I'm not sure which makes less sense. That Chief Wiggum somehow shows up at the exact right time on top of a moving train, or that Ethan would even care.
He should care though, since Luther gave him that whole speech about how he shouldn't kill Gabriel, since he knows what the key unlocks.
This movie is full of all sorts of nonsense, but this next 5 minutes of Vertical Escape Room Story Train Edition is some of the most fun nonsense to ever have no sense. Is that fun enough to overcome the nonsense? Yes. Yes, it is.
And as usual, I will also remove a sin for you praising a really good sequence in a Mission Impossible movie.
Thank you, Luther.
Ethan says, "Thank you, Mr. McQuarrie, for making sure I left the parachute in this exact spot in a compartment that didn't get pulled off the edge strangely."
Cool, but misspelling Christopher McQuarrie's last name.
The closer someone gets to you, the harder it is to keep them alive.
I'm warning you, movie. You better not be foreshadowing a Benji sacrifice. If anything happens to them, there is no place you and your God will be safe. There's no place that I won't go to send you. That is written.
Should any members of your team be caught or killed,
Oh,
I mean, I agree that I don't want Benji to die, but I'm sending you for double dipping and also giving this movie a send for something that might happen in the next one. Probably should save it for when that movie eventually comes out.